Which is the best mid-size electric sedan? In our comparison test today we have the VW ID7, the Hyundai Ioniq 6, the Tesla Model 3, together with the Polestar 2, the Nio ET5, the BMW i4 and the Mercedes EQE. Which one is the best in which element and which one would you go for? Which one would I take home? Let's find out together. Going in depth, let's go. The VW ID7, Volkswagen's new big electric sedan, will it crush the competition like Tesla, Hyundai or also the German competition? We will find out here with Thomas and Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go here with the front, which has the light strip that goes all the way through. You have this retro VW logo right here. And of course also the main headlamp unit with matrix LED available. This color here is aquamarine blue, very nice subtle blue color, but also a little bit brighter when the light shines on it. But we also have a white car for you here available on location, just that you can see the difference. Main design thing is of course aerodynamics, supposed to be very efficient, and in our first test drive we could indeed achieve really good consumption figures, some 4 miles per kilowatt hour or some 15 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That will lead to great range, at least in ideal conditions. More to that later. You can see it also design wise here. This bow is also standard, a good contrast then to the blue color. Really stretched wide out, but will it also deliver enough leg room and also headroom? We're going to find out. The wheels, either 19-inch or here the optional 20-inch wheels. These are then the optional, the biggest ones. They have somewhat an aerodynamic design, but not too much, so not too much over the top, I think. So design-wise, you can see aerodynamics is the thing, and also a very clean design indeed. And it also comes quite close to the initial concept car. The length here is 4 meters 96 or 195 inches, so indeed a full EV or full-size EV sedan. Towards the rear we can see this light strip goes all the way through right here, a three-dimensional design. Here this side reminds me a little bit of Tesla Model S, right? And indeed they want to fight Tesla Model S and Tesla Model 3, size-wise already against the Model S, price-wise against the Model 3, because the entry version is supposed to be way below 60,000 euros or dollars with the small battery. Talking about small battery, 77 kilowatt hours net. That is the battery we know already from the ID4, for example. And then there will be a bigger one available, 86 kilowatt hours net. And really looking forward how that one will end up as for the, consumption results and range overall and so on. So with our tests so far, we could, calculating to the small battery, reach 500 kilometers or 300 miles, and with the big battery even 570 kilometers or 350 miles. But again, in ideal conditions, 20 degrees in Celsius or like 70 degrees Fahrenheit. That was actually perfect here for this EV. Very interesting. As for the facts and figures, let's talk about recharging. For the small battery, 170 kilowatt DC, 200 kilowatt DC. For the big battery, and then you'll have some 25 minutes from 10 to 80% state of charge. So the bigger battery can be reloaded or recharged quicker, although it is the bigger one. The smaller then probably something around 30 minutes. Have you seen that small red light in the last shots? I turned it off now. That was actually the rear fog lamp. Interesting, right? Talking about rear, it starts with rear-wheel drive, 286 horsepower. Later on there will be an all-wheel drive version available, probably a GTX. Acceleration figure here so far, it will be something less than 7 seconds to 1 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. And what else? VW has worked on both suspension types, the standard one and also the optional DCC, dynamic chassis control, which is the adaptive suspension. And you can really pick a wide range on how you want it to rule, sportier or more comfortable. And in our first ride, that also worked very well indeed. Turning indicators, really impressive because they are very wide and indeed visible. I like it when the turning indicators are visible. That's just also a helpful safety feature when being on the road. What do you think about this? Tell me in the comments. And look at that, the rear turning indicator. Come around here, then you can see this 3-layer shape. That's a very interesting idea. And it also features a welcoming or goodbye signature. Here when I open the vehicle, look at that. Ooh, that looks fancy. And you can actually pick 3 different stylings. This is number 3 now, the most extensive one, so to speak. You know, when I close the vehicle, you can also change the waiting time for this when it dissolves. And when it dissolves, then once again, as a goodbye signature. There we go. And here, this is like the goodbye feature in the front, goes down, and when you open the vehicle again, you also once again have a welcoming signature here, goes up and illuminated in this cascading style. A short driving preview with the turning circle, look at that. Rear-wheel drive, turning all the way in, and although this is a 5 meter, 195 inches vehicle, it's almost like turning on standstill. That's impressive indeed. Sumo driving. And here we have the ID7 in glacier white. It's a different contrast, especially contrasting with the black roof. Of course, more colors will be available. And also interesting, they start here with the fastback form, but in 2024 there will be the estate. This will also be a quite exclusive EV estate then, and the roof then will just continue right here. This one already being a fastback with a wide hatch opening. Soon more details to that, but the estate of course will give you even more room. Also interesting how different the glacier white vehicle looks like here from the side and also from the rear, and really good contrast with the red signature. And also when you come really close here at the side with the IQ light, the optional matrix LED, also different here with the white accentuations, and then they also correspond to the exterior color. Now to the key fob, this is the standard high gloss one. I think a new one would be more suitable. Then here flush door handles. They have some haptic feedback at the back part when you open it. And if everything should fail, there's still a manual facer that you can fold the whole thing up. Door closing sound. That could be better. I think a classic Golf door closing sound was better in that case. However, at the inside of the doors is great build quality. Structure on the top here, soft touch. Then here the high grade leatherette, blue accentuation stripe. Interesting new solution here for the door handle. It opens already here. You know, so in the rear for the children, maybe not the best solution. And then the only thing I do criticize here, the window levers is good quality, but then you only have 2 and you have to press rear to change them in the rear. Some like it, some don't. What about you? Also here felt inside of this storage box, so I'm really happy with the build quality indeed. Then the first cockpit perspective, bright steering wheel, but you can also go for a dark one. In both cases, it's an animal-free material, both for the steering and for the seats. The dashboard here, soft touch with structure. Here, high-grade leatherette and black, the blue accentuation stripe, and it can easily catch up with the Mercedes interior or so. That's really astonishing, but of course here at the lower price. Then there are 3 different seats. A base fabric seat, then it has less accentuations, especially in the upper shoulder part. And this one here is the optional seat, Ergo Active, available in the comfort or the premium trim. And that defines how much seat massage cushions you have. Here in the premium trim, you also have seat massage cushions in the lower part. The other one just has them here. And this is a completely new seat massage system. Here also more shoulder accentuations. European markets will get this microfiber then in bright or in the black styling. And we expect for the American market to get a full high-grade leatherette that you can wipe seats then a little bit easier. But here this of course really cozy. The seats are great. I feel among best in segment and probably among the best in the EVs overall. So great comfort, still a lot of headroom here with the panoramic roof. I'll soon also show you how there's the headroom without the panoramic roof. This panoramic roof here is also special because it has the electrochromic function. And it means we have a slider here. I don't like sliders, but you can see it here. This is really cool. We know it from other vehicles, not completely new, but new for Volkswagen. Porsche used it before, for example, and then you can have view through or protection against the sun. Pretty cool indeed. And the steering wheel, manual control, up and down, in and out. I love the bright steering wheel, and the bright materials also have become more durable and so on. Overall, there's a high recycling share in this vehicle as well. So they're going all the way animal friendly and more sustainable, less use of resources, and in all trims. Well done, Volkswagen. Interior cockpit overview, clean layout indeed, horizontal stress, 15-inch screen, really large indeed, and you still have the temperature sliders. It will take one more generation of cars to go back to the physical knobs at Volkswagen. However, these are now backlit, and also the ambient lighting you can very well see at night, for example. That's pretty cool indeed. Then the shifting lever is here behind the steering wheel, the reverse, or then for parking. You can also go to the recuperation mode here. On the steering wheel you have the hashtag capacitive BS buttons. They also have some kind of feedback. They're also backlit. That looks cool, but still not the best solution. But also from that, Volkswagen will go back once again. And then you have a small digital instruments here, not too much to see, but actually clear to read. And the focus is then the head-up display, which is standard equipment with also augmented reality function. The infotainment has this app overview. That's new and I think really helpful, and you see it's also more responsive than before, so definitely step up the game. Yes, the temperature is still controlled right here, or you can do it like this, so this would also be possible. And then you also have this menu for the seat heating or seat cooling. Really interesting that it has moist sensors, so when there's moist felt in the seat, the ventilation will automatically go on together with a little bit of seat heating. That's also pretty interesting. And then you also have this main overview, which you can individualize. You can have your own tiles there basically, so a lot you can do with that. But the most important thing is that it is more responsive. DCC, dynamic chassis control, is the adaptive suspension, is also an option, and you can individualize that and then really fine-tune it also in which area this suspension is supposed to work. Why not, for example? And this is then the charging menu, for example. And very interesting is you can set here the charging limit for example, better battery care, for example, for 80 to 80%. And here in this menu here, when the battery would be cold, then it would show a limited number. And then you could here activate a battery preconditioning also manually. And Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, wireless, and wow, look at that integration indeed. And the Harman Kardon sound system is indeed, whoa, really bass intensive, but definitely also a new sound experience here for a Volkswagen. A matte cover here then, in bright or black in the dark interior. Then you have a lot of space, just like this thing here is not maybe the best build quality, or could be a little bit better, but here in the bright interior I think it's also cool that you don't have high gloss black piano lacquer here. Two USB-C chargers, inductive chargers, and then also here the pads that they also hold tight the bottles also. And then you have the split opening for the armrest like this, with a lot of space underneath. Indeed, this is a different luxury experience for a Volkswagen. The steering wheel heating is, feel it all the way around, so you feel it in the whole steering wheel. I've activated the seat massage also for the lower area. This is also a completely new level of seat massage, and especially for long journeys, which will work with this vehicle. This is a indeed astonishing luxury experience. And yeah, some of the options, of course, when you go for the highest trim seat and so on, but there is a lot of standard equipment also already with, with the 77 kilowatt hour battery and the head-up display and so on. So quite good standard equipment considering the price. So also, once again, the price-performance ratio of this vehicle is actually quite good, and that really will help sales. Most of the time we will use CarPlay or Apple Maps and so on, and Google Maps, but here you can see the car internal GPS is definitely way quicker and more responsive than before. So great upgrade for this new system here. Just, with the climate and also the seat heating, I think it's just easier to have separate knobs for that, but they will be coming back eventually. And of this new system, you also have these automatic vents here, the air vents. Yeah, we know that from Tesla, for example. You can also see it right here when I control them in the infotainment system, left and right, for example. Is that really needed? I don't know. To me, that's not a big progress. I am waiting for the Volkswagen interiors that go back, away from capacitive BS and more physical again. But this had already been decided before by different CEOs. So they have a new CEO now and will go in a different direction. So I am missing physical buttons with this vehicle, but still this whole software system is definitely a big step forward already. To all parents, here in the front door, this is the child lock for the rear door. Because when young children are playing in the rear and they do like this, the door is opened. So definitely use the child lock when you have young, unexperienced children in the rear. Other than that, here Harman Kardon sound system, 14 speakers when you have gone for this option. And also the rear door, soft touch at the top part with the structure and great build quality at the inside of the doors here with the bright microfiber, which would again be dark than in the other choice. Here with the blue accentuation once again, so that looks indeed pretty cool. And also because this is a dedicated EV platform, of course, there is no middle tunnel at all. The battery is underneath that, but you have a lot of space here in the rear, easily for 5 tall adults. And just look at that, how much legroom I still have. Even if I am driving in the front, this is enormous. And from the seating comfort, indeed, this is also great in the rear. Headroom, of course, this here being the fastback model, still some headroom left with 189 or 6'2". When you will have the estate model, it will be even a little bit better here for the legroom. Moving to the middle seat, of course, it's a little bit higher than, but it's still quite okay. So this definitely works very well. You can put down this here, not adaptive, the cup holders though. This is the ski hatch. And in the middle part here, lower part, we have a separate climate unit for the rear seats, and also seat heating is possible. Underneath there's 2 USB-C charging. The more and more I discover about this vehicle, the more I have to say this vehicle here will outsell most of the other EV cars on the market right now. And it's been a long time that we could say this about a new Volkswagen vehicle. So I think, yes, they still have some work to do with the software, as we saw, but they are definitely back on track. And also here, because the trunk is opening in the fastback way, and this is of course then easier to access, like in Tesla Model 3 or the Ioniq 6 and so on. The width here is a little bit less than 1 meter or 40 inches. However, the basic length is a little bit more than 1 meter or 40 inches. And the height here underneath the cover, like 44 centimeters or 17 inches. We can fold the seats from here, like this, and this, and then it automatically goes down. That's good actually. And to the front seats, as we would be driving as tall persons, we have here, that's actually pretty good, almost 2 meters or 78 inches. Wow. And underneath the cover, you can either store some charging cables, even more down so below, so either there, or you can also remove this whole thing to get even more height. That would be possible. Then you don't have an even loading sill, and you can also store this one, so there's like an in-between position. So like this, you slide it underneath like this, so that would be something then in between. Then you can still lift it up like this. So yeah, you're quite flexible. And then you can also have this net, for example, and hook it up right here. And then you can also secure things underneath the net. And then there's the retractable towing hook. When I pull this one, it comes out underneath right here. And at 8% of incline, you have around 1.2 tons of towing capacity. And at 12%, it's 1 ton. So not too much, but of course better than nothing. I have not opened the hood yet, so this will come as a surprise to me as well. Will it shrunk or will it not? Let's find out. No, it doesn't. Yeah. I mean, it's not too bad here for the wiper fluid and so on, but I think modern EV customers most of the time do demand a frunk, for example, to put charging cables and so on. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge. Acceleration with the ID7 rear-wheel drive. Plop, that's 80. Pretty quick indeed. To 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour is less than 7 seconds. And this will count both for the smaller and the bigger battery. Here we're driving the 77 kilowatt hour battery, but the 86 kilowatt hour battery will not be that much heavier. So both in driving and also in acceleration, it won't make a significant difference. We are in the sport mode for the best boost. Also the throttle input is a little bit more sensitive, and I also have a little bit more feedback from the steering wheel. I think it's more likable. So if you rather want a softer suspension, maybe go to the individual mode, put the softer suspension, but then put the steering feedback a little bit harder. I think that's a better setup. The steering feel itself is light, but still somewhat natural. You have to steer
quite a lot, yes, but they also use a progressive steering thing. So it is basically then with this increasing input, it still feels natural, but that you don't have to oversteer, so to speak, also when parking in and out. I soon can also show that to you. Even in the sport mode, suspension-wise, I can go over these speed humps and so on. But if I want it more comfortable, going here to the comfort mode, and yeah, you immediately feel that the suspension gets a little bit softer. They reworked both the standard suspension and the DCC, so it's both, so to speak, new. And DCC will give you more comfort, but also more sportiness at the very same time. And it's very interesting that no matter in which field you set it, it always rules plus and minus. You know, it's like a certain hardness area where this suspension rules, and therefore you still have sportiness when it's comfortable and also have comfort when it's sporty, you know what I mean? So it basically serves all purposes then. Here in the city part here, also very comfortable from the seats. It's not that you would have less comfort because you sit low now in comparison to crossovers or SUVs. For long term, also from the noise insulation, it might even be better. Here, once again, when we're going out of the city, we can go to the sport mode. And also when I accelerate out of the corner, for example, we have rear-wheel drive. That means I have full control over the front wheels. The whole car feels very well controllable. We have the low center of gravity. The battery basically pushes it to the ground. So it feels also like very good grip. And it is, although it is a large vehicle, really a lot of fun to drive. You don't feel the length. It has a significant wheelbase of almost 3 meters, and still it handles relatively light. Again, due to the rear wheel drive, low center of gravity, and also this, especially in the sport mode, good steering. Here, check it out, 90-degree bend. I don't have to steer much more than 90 degrees, so that's actually quite cool. Little bit, but that's it actually. And you can also drive it in a very smooth way, so both is actually possible. Here also an overtaking, easy, left to right. It's a lot of fun to drive, and it is more fun to drive than, for example, the crossover ones like the ID4 or the ID5, because we just sit a little bit lower. You have hardly any noise from the exterior. Here the asphalt is also, it's not like this, that super smooth asphalt, which is rather black or something, like the little bit brighter one, but there's no noise from the tires or something, and wind noise. Also the aerodynamics seem to play a big role for that. There's hardly any wind noise. Of course, at the later stage, we can also take this one here on the German Autobahn and then drive really, really high speeds. But here so far, it's a super, super silent and smooth experience. And this will, of course, help you also on long journeys. These seats here, I would go for the optional seats. I mean, base fabric seats, when you want to go it really in a budget level, will be fine, yes. But here these seats, they have more the accentuated shoulders, so they keep you tighter. And at the same time, it takes off weight from your lower back. And that makes it, again, more comfortable. You get less lower back fatigue and so on. If you directly compare it to the Ioniq 6, I feel that especially the seating comfort is indeed better. And more driving fun? Yeah, maybe a little bit, but they do come close in a way. But this one here, of course, offers more space because it's also longer. And if you compare this one here from the driving experience to the Teslas, especially the suspension, of course, plays a huge role. When you compare it to the Model 3 that doesn't have air suspension, then this suspension here is way better. The Model S then again has air suspension, and this is also doing a good job. But then again, it's much, much, much more expensive. And I told you that before, Mercedes EQE, price-wise, it's completely off. But space-wise, we even have more space here, and the interior build quality is also quite cool. So I think it can be comparable. And driving-wise, this here feels a little bit lighter and less complicated, you know what I mean? And feeling less complicated, I say something about like this about a recent Volkswagen. This is also new. So the user interface while driving, I still like to see some real physical buttons. They will be coming back at VW, not yet for this model, but we see this software upgrade, and it is quicker than before and also less buggy. So, for example, considering this is still an early prototype vehicle we're driving here, we have not seen so many faults or something that we did maybe for earlier production model versions. So they have really put a lot of effort into that. Back to the comfort mode. Let's see the comparison also acceleration wise. Let's just test it. When I, for example, in the comfort mode, hit the throttle, it's reasonably quick, definitely. And in the sport mode, hitting the throttle, to speed down a little bit less. Yeah, it's not the largest difference because it's also not a performance EV, but you feel a difference. This will then be different when you go for the all-wheel drive model that is to come at a later stage. This one then with even better acceleration figure, and you will also getting pulled a little bit by the front wheels. So also looking forward to drive with that. If you subscribe and hit the notification bell, then we always keep you updated with the recent developments here. As for the recuperation, when we are in the normal D or driving mode, it is some regenerative braking, but not too much actually. Most is done yourself with the brake pedal. When you push it forward here, B mode, then a pretty strong deceleration. Is it one pedal driving feeling? I would say almost. So we have some other EVs with stronger recuperation or regenerative braking. This one not the strongest. It wasn't the emphasis of this car. And you can always argue pro and con. At the end of the day, the efficiency will be the same. It just depends on how you yourself control the vehicle. Assistance systems, not the best roads to test this here. And also, gladly, no traffic around. But the assistance system has been upgraded as well. For example, the travel assist can also do automatic lane changes on the Autobahn. So this will also be included when you go for that one. We can also test it at a later stage then on the Autobahn for you. Overall, the driving fun is definitely there. I'm really happy with that. Well, yeah, I wouldn't have expected it from this big vehicle, that it's sometimes more fun than to steer it with, in comparison to smaller vehicles. And these electric vehicles, yes, they have the low center of gravity, but they're also very heavy. And sometimes we feel, okay, laws of physics, the weight just pushes you out of the corner. But here I don't feel it that much. And I think that some, must be connected to the fact that it's just a little bit lower. So this overall EV sedan idea, we've seen so many EV crossovers, EV SUVs. I think it's really the time for the EV sedans right now. And I'm pretty sure also, considering with this driving segment here, it's an ID5 on a couple of ID5s loaded on that truck. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this one here will get like sedan customers, but also when you think about like going EV crossover, EV SUV, you should also consider this one here, because with that hatch here, you don't lose any practicability, but you gain a little bit more driving fun and also more efficiency. I'm talking about the efficiency. Yeah, let's finish our round here and then check out about the efficiency numbers, because this is our second test drive now with this vehicle. And then we can find out if we can still score these really good efficient results.
And also in our second test drive, we reached some 15 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometer or 4 miles per kilowatt hour. Very impressive indeed. That would be a real-world range of 500 kilometers or 300 miles for the small battery and 570 kilometers or 350 miles for the big battery. However, ideal conditions, mild temperatures, also not too high speeds. So soon we'll take you on another tour with higher speed and also different temperatures.
And why is the ID7 so efficient? It's also the drivetrain itself, not only the aerodynamics. This is here a cutaway model of the electric motor. And if you compare this one here to the electric motor or the drivetrain to the ID3, ID4, this one here just uses half of the energy in the cycle. That's really interesting. So basically doubled efficiency. So will this vehicle here crush the competition? That was the initial question. Exterior-wise, I think it works very well and will work very well on the market. It does look somewhat unique, but also not too much extraordinary. Interior-wise, a great styling indeed, and also great comfort. The seats are among the best overall, I think, quality-wise and also visually-wise. As for the user interface, this vehicle here was planned before they took the decision to go back to physical buttons more and more. So user interface wise, it is still somewhat complicated when you want to activate some things, but they also try to automate things, for example, with the seat cooling, seat heating, that it automatically goes on when it's hot or cold and so on, or with the moist sensor, that this combination of cooling and heating goes on to dry you actually. Also in the rear seat, there's a lot of space. Yeah, I mean, the user interface and the software, I think it could be a little bit easier, but that's the only thing I could find to criticize. What we found out as for battery and for the range so far and the efficiency, wow, really amazing. And also the price point, this price-performance ratio. Volkswagen has always been about the price-performance ratio. And the most recent cars they've been launching, yeah, we couldn't really say like, oh, this will be game changer, you know, or the Golf that is basically the benchmark in the segment. So it has been a long time that we said that a new Volkswagen vehicle will crush the market. This one will, I'm pretty certain of that from everything we've seen so far.
The Ioniq 6. The Ioniq 5 was this crossover model. This one here now, the Ioniq 6, is the EV sedan. You can see it in this fluent form and supposed to have like 100 kilometers or 60 miles of surplus range in comparison to the Ioniq 5. And this is all supposed to fight the Tesla Model 3. Will this all work? We'll find out with Thomas and Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go! A lot of our Spanish viewers will be very happy today because in the background we have the Atletico Madrid stadium. Well, probably not for the Barcelona fans, but well, we'll enjoy the car here, the Ioniq 6 in the front with a cool headlamp design, LED or optional matrix LED, and then the daytime running light has this dot structure and really cool to see it also in the dark. We have some basement garage shots for you. Also, when you activate the turning indicators or hazard lamps, that looks really spectacular already in the front. The length is at 4 meters 85 or 191 inches. That is actually 19 centimeters or 7 inches longer than the Ioniq 5, but it has 5 centimeters or 2 inches shorter wheelbase. We'll see how this one plays an effect in driving. The engineers told me that they have here a stiffer suspension setup for the Ioniq 6, and also the batteries are of course always placed in the lower part of the vehicle, low center of gravity, so we expect a sporty ride. 18 or optional 20-inch wheels. We have here the bigger ones, you can see in a very cool dual tone design, and you can either get classic side mirrors or here these camera digital mirrors which then project on the screen on the inside. We'll see if that makes sense. The door handles here either flush or open like this here at the moment. They come towards you then, and you can see this really central silhouette which looks very impressive indeed and all serves aerodynamics. A super interesting design in the rear with this, let's say, 2-spoiler design. And then even more interesting, the light signature right here. We also did some filming for you in the basement garage where you can really see the full glory of this light signature going all the way through. And even more interesting, when you hit the braking light, look at this effect. And although there's just one light strip, it basically shines through the whole area. Wow, that's a cool effect indeed. Then here in the lower part, a contrasting end. And the electric motor setup, either all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive only. In the all-wheel drive version with the big battery, 5.1 seconds in the acceleration figure. 7.4, so a little slower than when you go big battery rear-wheel drive. And 8.8 if you go small battery and rear-wheel drive only. Talking battery sizes, there are two choices, 77 kilowatt hours or 53 kilowatt hours. Officially, that's the gross figure, Hyundai says, but they're using a buffer between 1 to 2%, so a very small buffer, so the net figure is also somewhat similar. Interesting, Tesla also works that way, whereas, for example, Toyota and Lexus have a big buffer for longer durability of the batteries. Charging flap on the passenger side, AC DC charging, 180 kilowatt peak with a small battery, 240 kilowatt peak with a big battery. Thanks to this 800 volt architecture, you can get great charging times, 18 minutes from 10 to 80% state of charge. In ideal conditions, either when you speed it up on the motorway before the battery is already warm, or when you use this new battery preconditioning. The Ioniq 5 has also been retrofitted for that with a software update, but it only works when you have not too little energy left in the battery,
when the battery itself is still quite cold, and you also have to have a certain range left when you have this charging station arrive, and you also need to put it in the car internal GPS. Then the battery preconditioning also works. Short sound preview, active sound design in the interior. At the moment it's all off, but just listen to the difference when I set it to enhance, like the strongest mode. Really? Off? Now back again. This is the key fob, and really? I mean, this looks like, I don't know, maybe like a 90s Tamagotchi toy, or maybe also something which vibrates and can be used in other places. I don't know. You tell me in the comments. What is clear that here, the flush door handles, they're open like this. Pretty cool effect. And also here, the side mirrors, even if they are digital, they fold in and out. And have you seen that? Here. Like this signature here in the side. Wow. Really cool, isn't it? Then door closing sound. Yeah, it's quite solid, and inside of the doors, super clean. Even cleaner when the bottle is not on the inside. Look at that clean atmosphere there. And they even moved the window levers to the inside of the vehicle to have this super clean design. Looks cool. Here, this is hard pack though, but it looks cool with the structure on the inside. So the door pockets are really slim, but you have this opening here, so at least you can put some smaller bottles here. You get a very nice entry badge. There's this comfort entry function, so when you turn on the ignition, the seat moves forward a little bit, and you have again beeping sounds. Okay, yeah. I don't know. There should be a button to turn all of these sounds off, right? So when I'm here in a normal seating position here now with 189 or 6'2", then the headroom is still there, so it works also for tall adults. You sit indeed lower than in the Ioniq 5, but overall, actually, yeah, makes so far a quite comfortable position. Steering wheel, manual control, up, down, in and out, very smooth from the process. You start with the base fabric seat, and that one is actually more comfortable because it adapts more to the body. Optional then, in Europe, this is animal skin. In the US, the Haptex high-grade leatherette. Yeah, so really don't understand why they went for that choice here in Europe still with an EV launch in 2023. And what's interesting, you can get this relaxed seat function, and you can have it driver and co-driver side. It is actually this button here, down there, this one here. But I can also control it here with this gentleman's function from here. So I can do it parallel with my seat. So for example, think about a charging stop or something, and you need like 18 minutes from 10 to 80% state of charge. And then you want to do something differently while charging. For example, sleeping. This is also something they intended because they have this even area here that you can work, for example, during a charging stop with your laptop. So when you look at that here, that it stands here in this area in the proper way. In the Korean spec, I heard there's also a special additional tablet available. Maybe we get that one later or something. But I think it's overall a good idea to have this workstation idea. Interior overview, 2x 12.25-inch screens in this one unit design. Very clean layout, horizontal stress here. Once again, this nice dot design. You also still have some manual things like the volume jog right here, and also the climate unit here, which can be controlled right there. Super interesting cockpit POV, right side, and also on the left side you have the digital mirrors. And we can discuss if the classic ones or the digital ones are better, but the thing is, the execution here is really well done with the screen up there. In the e-tron, they were like down here at the side where the door handle is, but placing them right here is a good idea because you have it in your line of sight. You can also adjust them right here, but actually it's not that much needed to adjust them. When you have the normal side mirrors, the interior looks like this. This is where the mirrors would be placed, but this design element then is just a little bit lower. Instruments, clear to read. You can cycle through different options right here, but even more impressive when you switch it through the driving modes, normal, sport, eco, and when you press and hold the button, then you can also get to your special My Drive mode. And while you're switching through the modes, you can see here these animations on the steering wheel with these light dots or LED dots. And they are also active, by the way, when you charge the vehicle and serve as an additional charge meter. Rest of the infotainment system, what I find a little bit too complicated, you have a hotkey in the lower part, you see here, but then you have to activate the seat heating in the menu, also the steering wheel heating. I would wish a separate button for that, but that, you know, that's a general car trend. This, the main menu, has quite good overview indeed. The car internal GPS is still somewhat interesting and necessary in a way, because when you set here a GPS point to a charging station, then you can also have the battery preheating for the winter time, that the DC charging also works in cold temperatures. Other than that, Apple CarPlay integration looks like this, and with Auto also possible, both with cable only. And the Bose sound system here, yeah, actually it has a notable bass always, like the Bose systems do, but I really like the sound indeed. You also get a small head-up display. The glove box is really interesting, opens like this. Middle console. Here again, this even surface for the laptop. And then you have inductive charging pin in front, USB-A charger, cup holders, adaptive and really large. Then you have, it's like a rough surface, which looks kind of cool. You have the window levers on the inside then, that the doors stay clean. Then you have this properly attached cover, and underneath more space. And even more space here underneath this floating console. Welcome to the rear seating area. Can really just say it like this. This is a premium vehicle. This has a lot of luxury style indeed. Yes, the inside of the doors is hard-packed, but the structure makes it also premium from the looks indeed. You have a lot of legroom, although the wheelbase here is shorter than in the Ioniq 5. They moved the rear bench a little bit further backward. And it's also relatively low indeed. So yes, a lot of legroom, but you also sit, you see here, I'm really leaning towards the back and very low, so I wouldn't say it's the most comfortable position for tall people. You see here, you know, how my legs are already in the air somewhat. And headroom, well, when I lean backward, then you feel that the roofline is going down, so it is closed, and only when I lean forward like this with my spine, then it also works. Otherwise, my hair is touching the ceiling. Then you can fold down this here, not adaptive for cup holders though, but from, you know, like closing and opening everything really makes a very solid quality impression. And then there are here some 2 USB-C chargers, and you can also see that we have this totally even floor, so they're really using this EV platform. And here in the back part of the seats, slide this open and you have a proper power socket. We are the channel of details, and that's why we also appreciate attention to details from the manufacturers, like this dot design button for the electric hatch. That's quite cool, by the way. And oh, also, do you see here right now, this color is called Gravity Gold Matte. And you might say, hey, it's just a matte silver. Well, here you can see these golden nuances now in that sunlight. Very beautiful. And now let's press this special button, and you can see here electric hatch indeed, yeah. But it is not a hatch style like in the Ioniq 5. It's more, even though it's electric, a classic trunk style. By the way, the Hyundai and Kia cars, they always have the thing that they have very loud beeping sounds, for example, when you close the trunk and so on. I think they could just tune them a little bit down. Maybe it's a safety thing just, I don't know. Oh, by the way, safety thing. That's well done. So, kids are safe, definitely. And here you can see this trunk. That's the thing now. The Ioniq 5 has 530 liters. This one here is 400 liters of trunk. So, that sounds little because the height is limited. However, you have one advantage. Here our famous measuring stick is 1 meter or 40 inches in length, and that's approximately the Ioniq 5 trunk. And here you have a little bit longer than, so like 1 meters and 9 and 43 inches. So a little bit longer in the trunk, but not too much longer. However, then again, when you fold the seats, 2/3, 1/3 split, then you get some 195 in meters or 76 inches. That's good.
And storage for cables here in the lower compartment of the trunk, small one at least. Or you use the tiny trunk, 45 liters, but for some things it works. Welcome to Thomas's driving lounge with the Ioniq 6, acceleration 0 to 50 in this case, sport mode. Plop. Whoa, that went really quick indeed. So, yeah, I also got a slide from the passenger seat. Yeah, so it is definitely quick enough to also impress your passengers. The driving modes, when you pin it down, then you have the very same acceleration boost. I talked to the engineer about that. It's just that depending, if you're in eco mode, for example, then like this acceleration curve is more like this, and when you're in the sport mode, it's more like this, so it reacts quicker. But at pin down, actually, they always give you maximum power output. As I said earlier, to 100 kilometers an hour, 62 miles an hour figure is 5.1 seconds actually. Here with the overdrive model and the big battery. Now I'll also zero out the consumption figure. We'll do a big loop now for you. And then we can also give you a realistic figure about the consumption, energy consumption. The thing is that today here, 18 degrees Celsius, it's the ideal temperature basically for the battery. It's not too cold, it's not too warm. Very good conditions here today to score a great consumption figure. And indeed, due to this more aerodynamic form, it's just from form pretty obvious that it will score a better figure than the Ioniq 5. But still, the batteries are the same, of course, so the question is, will it make a significant difference? That is a crucial point. So about these digital mirrors, I'm in general a little bit skeptical about that. The Audi e-tron, today the Audi Q8 e-tron, I don't like it at all actually. But here the solution is definitely better with these higher placed monitors, and is also a very crystal clear view. So it is just a better execution. That's what I like about it actually. That's pretty cool. And still it's somehow not that realistic in a way, I would say. So when you have the real mirrors, I always feel that they rather convey you a sense of reality, whereas everything you see on screen is good when it's an additional thing and it helps you. But I'm not exactly sure if it's really that useful that it would be like a permanent solution, you know what I mean? However, it has a pro and con thing always. Pro is that you do not have a blind spot. So these cameras are also installed in big trucks, for example. And there I think it's a good solution because they really have more advantages to it. Yeah, but we can discuss that for sure. You also have these aiding lines when you're changing lanes. That's actually pretty cool. And let's see here, also acoustic warning and a visual warning when someone is in the blind spot. So that's also a good additional feature, and you can integrate it all into the screen. So yeah, as I said, the best solution I've seen yet for these digital mirrors, also from the size and the clearness and so on. I might get used to it indeed. First I'm on the highway, 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, and so far so good from the noise insulation and so on. These aerodynamic factors always help in this case, of course, to make also the ride more silent. Okay, here I'm still checking, of course, with the shoulder view. Actually, you're also still supposed to do that. You can set different recuperation factors here for the Ioniq 6 up to the I pedal. So when you here press all the way to the left side, recuperation shift pedal conditions not met. Okay, that happened. Not sure why that is the case. So usually you can, now it works. Not sure why it didn't work before. So now you heard maybe this beep. This is then the I pedal, and in that case I lift my foot off the throttle and there's strong recuperation, really one pedal driving feeling. If you shut down the vehicle and restart it again, this is basically deleted and it jumps back to level 3. So I pedal cannot be saved as the
standard factor to go for, standard setting to go for again. But if you put it here, level 3, level 2, or level 1, that is actually possible. When you restart the vehicle again, that is being saved. This always has to do with these homologation things. So manufacturers have to set these testing cycles for the consumption of the vehicle, and then they also have to decide, have they set a certain level of recuperation for this testing cycle? That's the reasoning behind, not because the manufacturers want to want to annoy you or something. Difference to the Ioniq 5 in the driving feeling, that's very interesting, of course, because they have both low center of gravity and they have so many equal parts. They both feel kind of similar, yes, but here you more get the feeling of like an executive sedan ride. A little bit longer, a little bit lower, and I would say in the city, maybe dropping off your kids or something, and you have maybe a little bit more overview sitting higher, the Ioniq 5 would suit me better. But when I drive a little bit faster and want more calmness, want to enjoy these aerodynamic factors, here on the motorway, the faster you go, there I would say that the Ioniq 6 has the advantage. It just feels more suitable than for higher speeds. It feels more suitable for, you know, this kind of sedan luxury experience, you know what I mean? So this is probably also one of the major factors what you rather appreciate. If you rather appreciate this crossover SUV style or more the EV sedan style, and you indeed do feel that also while driving. It's really stable on the road when you go your left and right. The steering is rather sensitive, I would say, so it reacts. Yes, there's no dead zone area, but then here it's, you also see that when the legs of the passengers fly around. Yeah, I'm not steering too much, but you already saw that the car was reacting really drastically to it. It also changes a little bit throughout the driving modes. You always see this visualization here also at the steering wheel. So in the sport mode, you have a little bit more resistance, which is to me more likable. And this all-wheel drive system, told you earlier, has a rear wheel bias always because the rear electric motor is stronger. And there are different possibilities then. For example, also in this special My Drive mode selection, you can most of the time leave it in this normal auto all-wheel drive mode, which is the standard thing. And then the front wheels get decoupled when you actually don't need them. That saves energy, so I think good solution. And of course, when you really throw it out instantaneously, then you also get the front motor support again. But well, when I want to go drifting, it's a good idea that I always have this My mode where I can, for example, set this preferred rear-wheel drive mode only. Yeah, why not? Efficiency-wise, by the way, the best will be the lightest vehicle with the lowest equipment, small battery, rear-wheel drive only. Big battery, all-wheel drive would of course be a little bit less efficient. Then again, just the battery is bigger and therefore you will always have more range. At the end of this driving part, we'll tell you more about that as for the consumption and for the rear wheel range and so on. Here on the motorway, really feels at home, very silent, smooth on the road. Now 120 kilometers an hour, let's see. Yeah, it's indeed really windy outside today. You see it here with curly hair Thomas, seen also in the exterior shots. So do you like this car more or curly hair Thomas? Tell me in the comments. So on the motorway, it really feels at home. Then I can also set here this active steering. I can set the cruise control. Right here in the left side of the steering wheel, still real buttons, good. Then let's see how active this steering is reacting. Yeah, also a very smooth process. All of these things have been updated here for the Ioniq 6. Here again, the visual warning that there's someone overtaking. That's very good. Yeah, and I really want to like the richness of the colors and so on. It's so hard sunlight also today outside, and still the screen is really crisp, and we've seen it differently in much worse with other solutions by competitors here indeed. So you can really imagine cruising also a longer period of time here with this one on the motorway. Would I prefer it against the Ioniq 5? It's a tough question. I mean, the wide opening hatch, of course, is better with the Ioniq 5 if you compare with this one here. This one more gives some relaxed feeling, I think, because of the lower seating position in a way. The higher seating position maybe helps you with comfort, especially when city driving and so on. It's really a tough question. They both come so close. I think it all comes down just to this personal preference, crossover or sedan. It wouldn't be that crucial. Maybe the consumption will be crucial difference, but I don't expect that it will be so large in the difference. So both come close. I think it is just a matter of personal preference. The big competitors, Tesla Model 3, this one here indeed feels much more refined, I have to say, from the interior quality, from the materials and so on, what you touch and feel, driving-wise and so on, so much more refined, this vehicle, just software-wise. And of course the hardware behind the software is actually better with the Tesla, because the software here, also when you check the car internal GPS and so on, super laggy, really old school. And yes, you might use the car internal GPS here indeed, because you want to use the battery preconditioning feature, for example. On the other hand, it's sometimes so bad that you actually don't want to use it, and then you say like, hey, let's use Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, Apple Maps, Google Maps and so on, and that's it. But here the crucial point is we have CarPlay and Android Auto possibility here, and we don't have that with the Tesla. And that would drive me actually towards this solution here, because I hate that Tesla doesn't actually offer Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. That's really annoying. And yeah, I also realized it here on our test route. Now I took the wrong turn again. This car internal map here is really bollocks. So you need Google Maps or Apple CarPlay. Probably I would just not use then the battery preconditioning feature. You just use the car internal GPS and see about the charging stops yourself. And yeah, I mean, when you power it out on the motorway, then the battery is warm anyway. And now to some agile corners. Let's go to the sport mode. There's no adaptive suspension, so that one actually does not change. A little bit in here from the steering input, a little bit more resistance, and of course a more direct throttle input indeed. And when you go here some left-right, car doesn't shake up too much. They told me they have a little stiffer suspension setup than with the Ioniq 5, and also the wheelbase is a little bit shorter here with the Ioniq 6. So that indeed makes it a little bit more agile. Indeed, it's not that there would be a huge difference. Of course, a little bit lower also from the whole body type. So indeed, would I say it is more fun? Yeah, it is. A little bit. Doesn't feel like a completely super different car, like you would say this one end is the other end. They are still also similar in the driving characteristics, but the Ioniq 6 definitely a little bit sportier, a little bit more fun, and yeah, I mean, why not? So on one hand, it's more in this executive direction, and the other hand, also in a sporty direction, but they didn't put it so stiff that it would be uncomfortable. We even drive here with the 20-inch wheels, the bigger ones. If you want the most comfort, then you would stick with the 18-inch wheels. They usually only have advantages, these 18-inch wheels. And of course you have also smaller wheels as for the width, and that's again also good then for the consumption. As for the best efficiency for EVs, it would be like when the wheels are large, in the diameter, but they're actually small as for the width. So that would be the best combination actually. But here, yeah, having a lot of fun indeed. This guy wants to overtake, I think. Yeah, and that's easily done. You always have some power reserves left. Actually pretty cool, like that. And also the good brake blending. So most of the time you use the recuperation or regenerative braking. And when you need more braking power, then actually the rear brakes are being applied. And you always get the feeling that you maybe would just use the normal brakes. That's actually totally fine. So all the disciplines in driving we have tested, very well mastered. You you can get along with it in the city, calm, stable motorway driving, and also fun and agile here on countryside roads and so on. Let's see here in this roundabout. It's also another good test here, still in the sports mode. Of course, it's not like a supercar or something, but here it's also quickly out of the corner. Then you still feel this rear bias. Let me see if I can pick up a different feeling in the normal mode when I'm like here at this. When I'm then to go to the My Drive mode, where I have set the rear drive only. Yeah, maybe a little bit, because when you accelerate a little bit harder, the front electric motor is set earlier to on. In the My Drive mode, rear drive only. That's at least what I said. That's what I said, yeah. So it's cool that you have these features available. You can set so much in the infotainment system. And cool that we also can basically individualize our drive mode also in this respect. Consumption and real-world range for today. We did a testing cycle with motorway, countryside roads, city, so everything in it, a realistic mix indeed. And we ended up just a little bit below 18 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers. That is some 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour. A decent result, not a super great result, but also not a bad result, something average in between, I would say. Can be a little bit more efficient than the Ioniq 5, but it's not that kind of a crucial difference actually. So the real world range then would be something 420 kilometers or 260 miles, which is kind of the average then also in this segment. Here, Hyundai, Kia, Genesis, they are leading in the fast recharging. So when you go in the motorway, then quickly recharge again, this is where they lead at this moment, the competition. Not necessarily that they would have higher range or that they would be super more efficient or something. The Tesla motors there are a little bit more efficient, I feel, and of course their charging infrastructure. So all of the different brands have their different focus. Here definitely one of the main focuses was also that you have a very great premium experience, especially in the interior. With the digital mirrors, as I said, it's a very good execution, but I feel that real ones are still always better and safer in a way, because when you look at the screen, it doesn't give your brain the information, this is reality. You say like, there's a car next to me, yeah, that's on TV. You know what I mean? That's, I think, the risk involving that. Why is the Tesla Model 3 the most sold EV worldwide? We're going to find out, and will it stay that way? Well, first time here on our channel, the Standard Range Plus model, SR Plus, in the facelifted version, rear-wheel drive only, the version that most people will buy. Why? Let's find out. And let's start with the things I love and the things I hate. Things I love, the range, even here with the 55 kilowatt hour net battery in the Standard Range Plus model, 400 kilometers or 250 miles, really efficient. Then of course the supercharging network. In general, the very clean interior design. Oh yes, and that you can also get a wide interior as an option. With the facelift, the new microfiber inductive charging pads. And the sporty driving performance already with the SR Plus model. What I don't like, the decor element here at the dashboard is too bright when you pick the wide seat version. The speed is just displayed here in the upper left corner. No instruments. You could solve it with head-up display, but there is none. And what I don't like either are the panel gaps, for example here at the interior and the rear. They still need to fix these things. Yeah, I know, maybe that's a very German thing to criticize. Busted. Oh yes, and they still have some sharp edges where they are supposed to be none. To open or close the vehicle, here you need the key card, hold it at the B pillar or use your smartphone here as the mobile key. But I don't know, I'm just the type of guy, I need the classic key fobs. I don't trust the other things. Do you? However, gladly you can also order a classic key fob here for the Tesla Model 3 just by the accessory shop. Sleek design in front, there are the turning indicators and the daytime running lights. And you can see here, these are the standard 18-inch wheels. And I would recommend to stick with these because they are smaller, have more dampening comfort, and they also have the aerodynamic style. Yes, the bigger ones look cooler, but these here do a better comfort job. And they're also cheaper. And you know we are a channel of details, so here the VIN, F for Fremont, so this car comes from the US, C it would be when it came from China. So when they will have vehicles from Berlin plant, or Brandenburg, that's where it actually is, from the German plant that is supposed to be built, will they have a B then in there? Or a G for Germany? And since the facelift here, the frame here is in black, also so-called chrome delete, because there was chrome before. Once again, 18-inch wheels here, and they correspond now a little bit better, because when they are dark and also the frame is dark right here, and also the door handles here stay in black, this works very well then with the black wheels. So what do you think? In 5.6 seconds to 1 kilometers or 5.3 seconds to 60 miles an hour, is the acceleration figure here with the rear-wheel drive model, the SR Plus Standard Range Plus model. If you go for the long range model with the all-wheel drive, 1.5 seconds faster, or even faster with the upgrade, or then with the true performance model. Some people say it's not a premium interior. Well, it's clean and some parts are premium. For example, also the seats. This very soft leatherette surface, animal free, and also the steering wheel is animal free. So Tesla shows everyone how to do that in a more sustainable way. Getting inside is really easy because you have this easy entry function. So I have this position here set to an easy entry mode. And then when I start driving, I have my personal seating position. Seat comes forward and the steering wheel comes towards me. That's good. I have a comfortable seating position here and I also have enough headroom here with one with A6 or 6 with 1. However, we talked about in the Polestar 2 comparison episode, the seats are not that much optimized for tall people, so they can still fix some things there for the future, maybe different, more ergonomic seat form or something. The panoramic roof, of course, is super fancy, but we have the feedback from customers in really hot states that they say the AC cannot really cope with that when the sun is really shining in there. And I have actually also interesting experience because the ladies always tell me, what kind of climate is in this vehicle? Everything here in the top is so hot, and in the lower area with the feet then when the AC is on is so cold. I'm not feeling comfortable here. Yeah, so that's maybe a thing they need to fix. But at least, of course, it's always good when everything up here is really hot, right? Then here in the infotainment system, usually you have everything in the controls right here. You do your setup once, like display and what driving modes you want to be in. Acceleration I usually leave with chill. This is also the Thomas setup, so you can put your own user account. Here's the energy consumption, really efficient. Talking more about that later also during the driving part. So everything is rather straightforward if you want to set it. Just setting the AC, I like to have separate controls for that. However, you can also use the voice input. Set temperature to 22 degrees. Yay. Oh, and by the way, here, when you click on it, and then you also have this slider, so this is another possibility to control it a little bit fast. And this rear view camera here is also a great resolution. And then in the rear it does work for tall adults. It's not the most comfortable seating position here in the rear. Also headroom wise is no problem, but yeah, again, not the most ideal seating position, but also not bad. And the trunk area is really cool here. Easily fit the cabin trolley and this huge box underneath. For example, also for storing charging cables if you need them. So you can put even the suitcase here just in this lower case and then still have a decent length. And that is more than a meter or more than 40 inches. And of course you have the frunk in the Model 3 and actually already quite spacious. If you wonder, by the way, the difference to see the V3 supercharger, that's how they look like. And from the outside like this. So this is the V3 supercharger with one cable, and this is also a little bit thinner. However, in front still looks like this. And this is the V2 supercharger. Here, there the cables are split, and the top one also looks like this. Again for the Model 3, and the lower one looks like this then for S and X. And you can see also that these cables are also thicker. And here we can see the battery is about 20% and we can reach about 150 kilowatts approximately at this stage. The SR Plus, Standard Range Plus model, is maximum charging 170 kilowatt, but only when the battery is like almost empty. And here you can see that the charging curve is already begin to flatten a little bit, but that's still already quite good. And the long range model, by the way, that one is 250 kilowatt maximum charging peak. At 40% it already falls down to around 80 kilowatt. For a longer period of time was 50 kilowatt and now towards 40 kilowatt when we are approaching
our 80% goal. And now we are at 80%, and it took around 30 minutes to get from 20 to 80%. It's of course not too spectacular, but interesting always that now from 80 to 100 it would take the very same amount of time once more. And then there's of course the price. £41,000, 40,000 euros or $38,000, and that makes the Tesla Model 3 a good price-performance ratio, one of the crucial reasons why the Tesla Model 3 is the most sold EV. But soon there are the Kia EV6 and the Ioniq 5 to come, another competitor next to the Polestar 2. Welcome to Thomas's electrified driving lounge, and look at that, 13 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers as average energy consumption, so around 20 kilowatt hours per 100 miles, most of the time even lower. That's ridiculously efficient. That's awesome, and bringing a range of higher than 400 kilometers and more than 250 miles. Awesome here, 55 kilowatt hour battery in the SR Plus model. However, setting driving mode to standard, and this is the rear-wheel drive only model. It's not as fast as the all-wheel drive model, but here you can still let it hang out from 30 kilometers an hour to, let's go. Woo! That's 180 kilometers an hour. Wow, awesome acceleration, although we don't have the strongest model right here. That's really super cool, so you won't miss the sportiness. Of course, the long-range model with the all-wheel drive or then the performance model is even more extreme. But already with this here, with the SR Plus model here, recent facelift, you can still impress some people who have not driven EVs yet. It's like, whoa, that's an instant acceleration. Torque is already there, really great. They've also worked a little bit on the noise insulation. Now, at the moment, it's picking up the rain a little bit. Yes, the Tesla Model 3 is not the most silent vehicle at higher speeds. Definitely there. It lags a little bit behind, you know, if you consider like the typical German competition than the mid-size vehicles. But at, you know, normal speeds like 100 kilometers, 60 miles an hour, 75 miles an hour, 120 kilometers an hour, it's still reasonable, and you can also travel on the motorway. By the way, I did a test 120 kilometers an hour or 75 miles an hour on the motorway constantly. Then of course the energy consumption is a little bit higher. I have about like 17 kilowatt hours on 1 kilometers, or like 25, 27 kilowatt hours on 100 miles. That then would mean in this case a range of around 300 kilometers or 190 miles for constant motorway speed in a higher stage. But still, that's really decent, and especially considering the price you pay for this vehicle once again. And really nice for the lane change. The steering is very precise and direct. It feels somewhat a little bit artificial, but you can also set different levels, like soft, a little bit more feedback, or even harder in the infotainment system. It's actually quite easy to do here in when driving steering mode. I leave it in standard. That's to me the most suitable. Comfort is a little bit too loose, I think, and sport is maybe a little bit too stiff. But so the standard steering mode is to me actually fine, and then it's really fun to drive. Also the lane changes and so on. So can't complain about that. And once again, the throttle input is really spontaneous, and I usually set the acceleration here to chill, because in standard mode it's sometimes even too fast, even here in the SR Plus model. So you're just a little bit more efficient and also just calmer while driving this vehicle. When you leave the acceleration in the chill mode, would be lässig in German in the translation here in the screen. Yeah, why not? German lesson for the day. So once again, very good presentation here in the driving mode, and yeah, you feel you can put this car in the slalom. It sometimes feels go-kart alike, low center of gravity, because the batteries are of course EV platform alike. Here in the lower end of the vehicle, really good with low center of gravity, gives you a very sporty feeling. And now, talked about it earlier, so important, stick with the 18-inch wheels. They bring you so much more comfort comparing to the 19-inch wheels, and it's just a better ride. Yes, they don't look that great from the outside,
But once again, this car does not offer an adaptive suspension. The base suspension is not the best one we know. It's somewhat okay. Yes, it gives you a sporty driving feeling, but when there are some fierce bumps in the road, it sometimes gets a little bit uncomfortable. But here, with the standard 18-inch wheels, it's definitely better. More tire left for, dampening out these bumps. So definitely stick with these. And the good thing is, you also just save some money. And also at lower speeds here, good with lane change and so on. The one thing I'm not satisfied with is definitely the so-called autopilot. You have a normal cruise control, and then you have the autopilot, which can take over the steering in a way, but you have to keep your hands on the steering wheel. And I've been testing so many different systems over the years, and this one here has too many false positives and false negatives. So sometimes when there's nothing, you have sudden braking. They give software updates regularly. That helps definitely, but sometimes it did happen. And also these situations, on the other hand, where you think like, oh, now the car should react, but it doesn't keep it properly in the lane. So to me, I'm not a fan of the autopilot, totally not. I'm usually indeed not using it. Still having the hopes, however, up that they will update it more and more and more. They also constantly gather cloud data to keep it updated, and maybe at some point then they are able to overtake the classic manufacturers in this respect. So I don't miss the power of the all-wheel drive model. Really cool also to have rear-wheel drive. Then yeah, it's always fun just to have the rear-wheel drive. It just boosts you out of the corner a little bit better. So I'm really totally satisfied with leaving a little bit of power. All-wheel drive model if you want more range, of course, and if you need that all-wheel drive, depending on where you live, most people will be just be fine with this model here. Here, by the way, in the bright interior, you see it does reflect a little bit of sunlight, especially when the sun is coming out a little bit more. So I wish they would also offer for the white model something that's a little bit darker right there. It looks fancy, but to me a little bit too distracting. Although I still like the white seats. Yeah, what about that? And by the way, it's also a little bit weird to put the camera on at higher speeds and then have the camera image. Yeah, but why not? Gives you an interesting perspective as well. Now, when we're already at speed, one more acceleration. I put it once again in the standard driving mode. Let's see, 1 kilometer, 60 miles. Let's go. Still something coming. That's good. So even when you overtake someone on the motorway, high speeds, no problem. And now once again at higher speeds, the car still remains stable and calm on the road. Very well done. Tesla Model 3 versus Polestar 2. Do we take the red pill or the white, grey-ish pill? It's called magnesium, this color. This will be a very interesting exterior, interior and the driving comparison. This will be a blast. Styling wise, we can see here the Polestar 2 with this upright front grille and this dot structure. And to me, the more prominent design definitely than the LED daytime running lights. So it has some kind of crossover look already in the front. The Tesla, more this EV style look definitely, and a flatter sedan look. So styling wise, I think the Polestar 2 wins it for me, at least from the front. What about you? Interesting in the side profile, the Polestar 2 looks a little bulkier because of this crossover style, crossover cladding right here, really cool look, sporty crossover look I would say. And you can see here this special design graphic right there. But lengthwise, the Tesla is longer, 10 centimeters or 4 inches longer, 4.70 meters here for the Tesla, or 185 inches, 4.60 meters or 181 inches for the Polestar 2. And you can see the Tesla Model 3, more the classic sedan styling from the side profile. It wouldn't have been necessary for an electric vehicle to have this classic sedan styling, but they just went for it for design purposes. And also interesting how the strong shoulder is being formed out right there. Really looking forward to your comments. Which one would you go for design-wise? And also super interesting to take a look at the rear in direct comparison. The Polestar 2 with the more modern look. Very interesting light signature here as well, and this more angular design, whereas the Tesla looks rather outdated design-wise in comparison to the Polestar 2. But what is not outdated at all is the range and the efficiency with the Tesla. really interesting to tell you that already right now, because it's one of the crucial factors of this comparison review. So in our tests, when we keep it steady as for acceleration and so on, we can score a range of up to 600 kilometers or 400 miles with the Tesla Model 3, whereas the Polestar 2 rather goes in a direction of around 400 kilometers or 250 miles. And this is of course a big difference. The efficiency difference here, when we talk about energy consumption on 100 kilometers or 100 miles, at least 4 to 7 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers, even more of course, more like in 6 to 12 kilowatt hours on 100 miles difference in favor of the Tesla Model 3. So the faster you drive also, the bigger the difference is, the more efficient is the Tesla Model 3. And that is on the paper definitely a great advantage already for the Tesla Model 3. Charging 11 kilowatt AC, or at the V2 supercharger 150 kilowatt, or at the V3 supercharger then 250 kilowatt. So clearly the Tesla leads there together with the supercharging infrastructure. That's of course another advantage for Tesla, especially when you are in the US. And recharging of the Polestar 2, also 11 kilowatt AC and 150 kilowatt DC. So when you have the latest edition of the superchargers, then once again the Tesla prevails here. So once again on papers, as for efficiency, range and recharging, the Tesla definitely needs it. Oh, and the Polestar 2 also has this goodbye light signature. Yeah, there we go. Really spaceship alike, or kit alike maybe, Knight Rider. This in the welcoming part. That's nice. And turning indicators comparison here in the rear. Oh, ain't that cute. Well, I think it's too small for a turning indicator in the rear with the Tesla Model 3. Whereas with the Polestar 2, this is definitely visible. And in the front, it replaces the daytime running light with the Polestar 2. I think really fancy, whereas with the Tesla, there's a separate turning indicator in the lower area then. When we open the engine hood, we usually talk about acceleration figures with combustion engine cars. Well, let's do it also now today here. 4.7 seconds is the acceleration figure for the Polestar 2, 4.4 for the Tesla Model 3. We have both the all-wheel drive models for today, so Tesla Model 3 long range and the Polestar 2 with the dual motor. Now both are also available with one single motor. Tiny with the Polestar 2, just fitting for some charging cables, whereas the Tesla is actually a little bit better here. So you can put charging cables and something more. This, has a triangle here. So very well usable here with the Tesla Model 3, Polestar 2 just a little bit tinier. Key comparison, both, doesn't look too good. Here the normal key fob for the Polestar 2, but really cheap housing. And Tesla here with the Model 3, you have the key cards, but you can also still order the classic Tesla key from the accessory department. Then Tesla here with these integrated door handles, and door closing sound doesn't sound that sophisticated, but also frameless. Yeah, the Porsche Taycan sounds good, although frameless doors, but it's also triple the price. Then inside, all animal-free materials. That's of course cool with both vehicles today. Awesome. That's where we are in 2021. And soft touch. Here's some microfiber use. Recent update with the facelift, also with these buttons here that are now illuminated to open the door, and manual opening the door here. And the first general look is super clean. It has a very unique atmosphere. Matte wood, that is really nice. And you either have the black styling or you can go for an all white styling and totally buttonless, just this central infotainment screen. Really different with the Polestar 2. First of all, door closing sound. That sounds better, but also not super sophisticated. And then you can see this is more a classic car interior, not in a classic car as for old timer vintage vehicle, but more of a traditional how we design car interiors. Of course, a little bit more modern, but definitely Tesla is more this futuristic interior, whereas here we know more things, but in some parts the build quality here is better. And we have also really cool solutions, for example, then here with the fabric styling at the dashboard, also some matte wood. And also these seats are once again animal free. A little bit different because that in the Tesla, the seat is super slick, just in leather red. Here it's a open cell fabric at the side, and the middle part is interesting. It's a mix. It's not open cell fabric as with the side, but also not super slick as in the Tesla. It's something in between, and I think it's a good solution because you can wipe it clean quite easily, but still it's already a little bit more breathable. And more this vertical screen here in the middle part, so really absolutely different interiors, but both super exciting. Seating position comparison, Polestar 2 here. I'm Windows 86 or 6.1, frequent subscribers know. And here, yeah, to the sides close, but to the panoramic roof, there's a lot of headroom left. So both with fixed panoramic roofs, and steering wheel control are in and out like this, so smooth control. So nice position here for tall drivers. You more have the classic cockpit atmosphere with a big middle tunnel right here, so as you know it, and you feel like this is going in some way crossover direction from the seating position. And also when you put the seat here a little bit higher, I think it feels a little bit better to the vehicle. So definitely more comfort here, and you have the space to the top ceiling. When you put this seat here a little bit higher, you somehow feel, you know, better positioned in the vehicle and more fits to the whole philosophy of the vehicle. I feel the seating comfort is a little bit better here with this seat forms. Cool feature with the Tesla Model 3, I have here this easy entry position, and I can switch it in the screen, or when the doors close automatically when I put in the gear, then I have my position with the steering wheel more towards me and the seat also a little bit closer. And here with the Tesla Model 3, the seat is not that optimized on taller people. They are a little bit short, and that's why I can only find comfort here when I move the back part of the seat a little bit more to the back, which is not that ideal for, you know, best position in the seat, and also for building up pressure for the brake pedal. Well, the brake pedal you don't use that often here in Tesla Model 3 though. So overall the seats don't feel that sophisticated. Definitely more comfort in the Polestar 2, but still also somewhat fine because they are also really soft, and again a high grade leatherette being used here. This is what I've always been talking about. There should not be animal materials in cars in modern times, because you can have the very same luxury experience even then with recycled materials. Well, and overall, super different position. In a way, you feel you're a little bit lower in the, you know, from the whole concept, because you don't have this crossover concept here, but definitely a more roomish feeling when sitting inside here. And headroom, once again, fixed panoramic roofs, a lot of space here, also in Tesla Model 3, and to the side, of course, a little bit closer. But you can drive both vehicles also when you're quite tall as for the headroom. Once again, super clean atmosphere here in the Tesla Model 3, and that's somehow also calming while driving. However, the speed just appears here. I think a head-up display would be really useful then for the Tesla Model 3, because looking at the speed right here is definitely not ideal. Software-wise, and also the CPU and so on, superb with the Tesla, and they say that Tesla has a lead of 5 years in comparison to the other manufacturers as for hardware-software combination as for that. See here, super fast as for the satellite view, and you can have a lot of different controls here in the infotainment screen. You should not control it while driving, but the most stuff, you set it once and then it's actually fine. For example, if the steering mode is like this, leave it at standard. If you want a little bit more stiffer feedback and so on, and also if you want the stopping mode to stand still, or if you want to roll when releasing the brakes and so on. Here, usually set the acceleration to chill. That's totally fine, totally enough. Here in the long range model, it's always so powerful that standard is sometimes like almost too fast. Climate control, however, only here in the lower part like this. That's not too easy to control. However, you can do more and more with the voice control. Set temperature to 20 degrees. And that works very well, and you can do a lot more things with the temperature, with the with the voice control, like navigate to Berlin. Oh my god! Here, and that works very well. Super fast reactions. Also, that's how it's supposed to be. Then we have inductive charging pads, 2 now since the recent facelift, with nice microfiber. And we can slide this one open, a lot of space right here. Cup holders, however, not adaptive, that's a miss. And then well attached, the build quality has been improved bit by bit with the Model 3, and even more space underneath. Here's also a 12-volt power supply, by the way. Let's take a look at the camera, because this is really fancy. Great resolution, and also recent update that you also now have the camera view from the side mirrors. So this is then looking backwards. Oh, interesting that the the color temperature here is a little bit different. Warmer temperature here and colder up there. Now the interior overview of the Polestar 2. More design elements, not that calm in design, but still a great Scandinavian style design. So really like that. More the vertical fit than here for the screen. And here we have both the infotainment screen and also the digital instruments. And I really have it, it's better to also have digital instruments or at least a head-up display. And it also switches around a little bit here on the left side. When I put the gear in, you can either have a map view like this, so it's good to have this GPS view then in the middle part, or you can also switch it around and have a more just bigger speed like it is, so you're also flexible. Overall, I think well done as for that. In the middle part then, however, you have this overview. You can directly switch to the vehicle functions. That's an easy control as well. One pedal driving standard, that's recommended definitely. Here creeping on or off, it's also when you release the brakes. Steering feel I would set to firm, because otherwise it feels too loose actually. And also assistance systems easy to put in and out. The camera here is with this fake drone view from above, and then you can switch to the rear view camera. Here I feel the Tesla has better resolution as for the camera. However, this one here has also a usable front camera. How we go to that one again? 360, and then here we go, front camera. We know the Tesla does have a front camera from the dash cam, but somehow it doesn't appear then in this other view. So, and then once again here, because this is very interesting, the phone. Both vehicles with Bluetooth focus. However, the Polestar 2 is also supposed to get Apple CarPlay. But the thing is, this is a native Android integration, and that means you have Google Maps here, and that's also super fast. So both of these cars are leading as for the infotainment systems. And I think the Polestar 2, because it has the Google Maps, even better, because it knows more traffic information. It's just more clever during the navigation. So I would always have that. And of course you can use, hey, drive me to Berlin. Oh, sorry. Now everyone is driving to Berlin, probably at home. Sorry about that. So I will not say, hey, famous search engine anymore live here on stage, because it obviously activates all the smartphones. Yeah, sorry for that. And of course you can use other more sophisticated commands here with the Google Assistant. Let's try it with the temperature. And I don't say it. Change temperature to 21 degrees.
Got it. Changing the temperature to 21 degrees.
Super fast how the commands are being transported. In the middle console here, inductive charging pad for your phone. Then here the chargers as well. Then you still have a manual volume knob. That's cool, also very sophisticated, but no manual climate knob either. However, here in the lower part of the screen, you can control it a little bit better than with a Tesla. So that's actually to put temperature higher or lower. An okay touchscreen solution. Once again, also the voice control is possible, of course. Then the shifting lever, also quite cool, with the Polestar logo. And the cup holders are adaptive here. That's definitely better, so the beverage don't fly around all over the place. You can put this one forward or backward. Then another cup holder, and you can also put this one absolutely backward. Not sure why they did in that way. Yeah, I mean that you can have this second cup holder then a little better, but this is not dampened, so here, yeah, that's not that kind of a premium solution, but overall I think the interior here feels a little bit more premium. Headless Thomas. Well, that's one thing I can only fit in here because I'm exactly next to the panoramic roof. I wonder what that does for crash safety. I don't know. That does work then headroom wise, but I feel a little bit cramped in here still. And since I can only find a comfortable seat position in the front when the back is a little bit more backwards, it gets closed with the knees in here. Not too good for the rear seating position here, I have to say. The only cool thing is really no middle tunnel at all. That's how it's supposed to be for the EVs, and that's why sitting in the middle part is actually easy. That's actually giving you a lot of space and roomish feeling. So overall, yeah, well usable, no doubt about that, but also nothing special in the rear. Here, by the way, especially at these transitions, for example, you can see that the build quality is still lacking a little bit, like this. Here the panel gaps. Yeah, you can say it's maybe not the most important. At least you can work on this one. I always say that the concept is really great, and the whole, from building up from the base as the EV model, this is great with Tesla. On the details, you can still work on later, and they have already improved a lot of things. I hope this is still to come. And in the rear of the Polestar 2, a more upright seating position, definitely, and again, more comfortable. So the cushions basically, they're a little bit more plush in the Tesla Model 3, but the overall ergonomics are definitely better here in the Polestar 2. Also from legroom, a little bit better. However, here the reason is actually not because the wheelbase is so different, it's more like that this seat is more upright because I can drive that way, whereas the Tesla I can only drive in a comfortable way when the seat is a little bit more back. That's also reducing the legroom in the Tesla Model 3. Headroom wise, yeah, I mean the Tesla has this integration with the panoramic roof that I can directly sit underneath it. Here then it's the beginning of the fabric, so it's also quite close here, but it still works. But the overall seating experience then, also like long term and so on, would be better than here in the Polestar 2. Once again, also really nice processed here, build quality, and we also have this armrest right here with adaptive cup holders. The only thing here, the cover here for the ski hatch, that's a little bit, hit and miss maybe. I don't know what that's supposed to be. By the way, cool, also in the performance pack, which is an option, then you also have these yellow seat belts, also a quite fancy option. And another fancy thing is, when you look from here, from the back to the front, you have this mirrored Polestar logo. It's an illumination in the panoramic roof. Ooh, and that's again where the Model 3 has an advantage. A middle tunnel in an electric vehicle, absolutely unnecessary. Of course, they also use it for stability reasons and for battery storage and so on. Yeah, I mean, this chassis feels more stable or stiffer indeed, but of course for the rear seating here, for the usability, yeah, that's not so good. Super interesting also the trunk comparison. Here, first of all, how they open. And here with the Tesla, more classic sedan style, not quite, but you see here more this, smaller hole to put things in. And here you have to go very low to open this hatch, and this is then more this fastback styling, so easier to load things in and out. Well, in a low basement garage it might be a problem, but definitely when you remove this one here also, you can get things in and out way easier, and also maybe put a bicycle in and so on. This is also interesting, this trunk split here, that you can secure a backpack or whatever right there. And then let's look underneath. Here we go, some more space right there, and 440 liters. Whereas with the Tesla Model 3 we have 540 liters. So it's more in the capacity. And also right here, wow, this huge box underneath, and lengthwise, this is really interesting. Here the Tesla Model 3, a little bit more than 1 meter or 40 inches. So that's, like this longer than the Polestar 2, and the width here a little bit less than 40 inches or a meter. And then once again, if we move to the Polestar 2, I can show that visual confirmation here. That's exactly 1 meter or 40 inches, but the width here is a little bit better. Also, yeah, exactly 1 meter or 40 inches. So width-wise, a little bit better here than with the Tesla Model 3, but the Tesla Model 3 longer, and of course there's huge storage underneath. But although the liter figure is better for the Tesla and the length a little bit longer, I think the crucial thing is really how to get things in and out, and the possibility to store more bulky things in. And that's why the Polestar 2 is to me the trunk comparison winner, although it has less of capacity. Welcome to Thomas's comparison driving lounge, and for the acceleration test we go to the standard acceleration. Usually I leave it in the relaxed acceleration mode so that the car is not so fast, because it's so powerful, this Tesla Model 3. We're starting here with the Tesla, and since it's my Matrix reference day, I would say, oh, there's an agent behind us. We gotta flee. So watch the speed. This is kilometers an hour, classic German motorway style, and 40 kilometers an hour. Let's go. that's 200 kilometers an hour, 125 miles an hour. Woo! Wow, I mean, yeah, in the later stages that was a little bit, you know, lacking of performance then, but like the start was super performant, really cool. And you hear now really loud wind noise here at higher speeds. However, good test now here for chassis and steering. Ooh, doesn't feel too natural. The steering is too hectic. I mean, it's super direct, but maybe even too direct in a way. It feels arcade-alike, so not that natural, more like computer game. So yeah, here now 130 kilometers an hour, like 80 miles an hour. This is more motorway speed that is better as for the wind noises. Now recuperation, lifting foot of throttle, strong recuperation, that's always cool. You can also see the energy spike from the acceleration, always nice to look at. And well, I hardly ever use the brakes in this vehicle. That's why also the brake pads, I mean, there's no problem of replacing them. It's more like that they are not being used, what is rather the problem than here in the Tesla. And of course, most of the time for the other electric vehicles as well. Well, and here at 80 kilometers an hour, or also when we are at 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, that's more a motorway speed where I can enjoy it, where the wind noise is not that high. So wind noise, not the best. You know, there are some third-party retrofit kits for noise insulation, which some Tesla Model 3 customers install themselves. That might be a thing for you if you are a Tesla Model 3 owner. Looking at the screen here also, yeah, I mean, there's not much more ambient lighting here. A little bit with the buttons and so on, but that's basically it. Well, I mean, it's overall a good standard vehicle, so to speak, and it also works on the motorway, no doubt about that. Now with this extreme acceleration, consumption went up again, but the crucial thing here about the Tesla Model 3 is so far, to me, the most efficient EV I've driven. So the energy consumption figures are something like that true. So it's the only vehicle I wonder, like, was it really so low? Could that be? And that's what is also leading it here in comparison to the Polestar 2. This vehicle is more efficient both at lower speeds and especially also at higher speeds on the motorway. And you can always save a couple of kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers or 100 miles here with the Tesla Model 3 in comparison to the Polestar 2. And that ultimately, of course, also has an effect on the range. Together with a little bit bigger battery, definitely more range. So at least 1 kilometer, 60 miles more range, if not more, maybe more in a region of 100 miles more range, 150 kilometers more range here for the Model 3. So efficiency and range-wise, definitely Tesla Model 3 leads it. Motorway reaction-wise, here, higher speed. Performance-wise, yes, Tesla is better also when we take the long-range model now against the Polestar 2. The performance model of the Model 3, of course, even better. Of course, will be very interesting when we hit the motorway now with the Polestar 2 and compare it. But before that, the agility driving part with the Tesla Model 3. But before we do that, one more acceleration when we're already at speed, here 80 kilometers an hour, and go that. Woo! Yeah, still so much happening, but I don't feel like I want to drive way faster with this vehicle because of the wind noises. And yeah, once again, it's very precise as for the steering, but it doesn't convey such a safe feeling because sometimes overreacting, definitely. Yeah. Maybe when you want to overtake on the motorway with unlimited speed, you don't do it with 90 kilometers an hour. Yeah. Happens. And goodbye. One more lane change here, higher speed. Yeah, definitely too overreacting. And suspension-wise, it's also not that forgiving. The suspension is rather stiff. Hooking up quite well to the road, yes. But when there are some bumps in the road, doesn't feel that comfortable. So I'm not that happy with the suspension, and also how the whole car feels chassis-wise. It feels like it would be flexing, so it doesn't deliver this unity, driver, steering, vehicle and the road, doesn't deliver this, unified feeling overall. Once again, we're always rating it at a very high level, definitely pointing out the pros and the cons of the vehicle. So the Model 3 to me, really good vehicle when you don't rely on too high speeds and when you don't have, too much bumps in the road, definitely, and especially when you appreciate that high range and efficiency at an attractive price point. That's the best thing about the Model 3. And now, some more agile driving fun. And now, driving up the hill. Woo! Yeah, it's always so spontaneous acceleration. Yeah, in the corners, the steering wheel does a little bit better, definitely, in comparison to the high-speed motorway driving. So you can have a lot of fun with that. And there's also a racetrack part with the Model 3 Performance we did a couple of years ago. That was really impressive. You can also check out that review, of course. And here, yeah, definitely having a lot of fun. And what a great spontaneous acceleration out of the corners. And this is a rear-wheel biased vehicle because you can also get it just with the rear electric motor. Here, of course, you're always getting pulled from the front wheels as well. But it might be a thing to go for the standard range model just to get the rear motor. That will bring some more sportiness, not an acceleration, of course, overall, but in getting out of the corners. We had the same experience with the Porsche Taycan rear-wheel drive base model recently. And there's of course also a review of that online on our channel. So having a lot of fun here now, especially because of that acceleration. And since we have a quite even road here, it also feels nice. And doing slalom, yeah, definitely. At lower speeds, the steering characteristic is actually cool that it's so extremely direct and gaming alike. Just at the higher speeds, it's not that cool. Here now, hairpin corner. Let's see how it performs right here. Wow. Yeah, electric vehicles are great performance vehicles because of that instant torque and also low center of gravity. So yes, you can already have a lot of fun with this vehicle here. Yeah, that here, especially sporty driving at lower speeds, very well mastered. And now it's time to drive the Polestar 2 and race with this one through the matrix. So let's get to a speed of 40 kilometers an hour again. Let's, safety first, let this car pass, and 40 kilometers an hour. Let's go. That's 200 kilometers an hour, 125 miles an hour. Yeah, also really great acceleration. What I wonder, we really have to check the time codes because I felt that the Tesla had more punch from the get-go, and then the Polestar 2 later on was maybe a little bit better. We have to check that in time code really. Here now at higher speeds, of course, you don't hear any engine noise or so. The wind noise are predominantly or prevailing, but I feel that the wind noise maybe a little bit less than with a Tesla. So that's my subjective feeling. Not sure how it comes on camera. Maybe also scroll back to the Tesla when we hit higher speeds. But here so far, good feeling. Lane change also, nice feeling. Recuperation, I feel, is not as strong as with Tesla, but definitely also strong, like you can do a one pedal driving feeling. Steering, I have set it to firm actually. Very rare case where I really set it to firm because, this is way better. When in the standard setting, it feels so loose. Yeah, that doesn't make so much good. And here then in the firm setting, the steering is, I would say, not that precise either. There actually, the Tesla Model 3 is better. The steering in the Tesla Model 3 is not that natural, but in this artificial feeling, really precise. Here, even when you have the firm setting, the lower degree angle is somewhat dead, so not too happy with that. Overall, I have to say then the steering feeling better still with the Tesla Model 3. In both cases, quite artificial, but the Tesla Model 3 has the more precise steering. But still, both feel really good in acceleration, both quite performant. One more lane change here. Still, it feels good, and agile, no doubt about that. Also, once again, low center of gravity. These electric vehicles just have that advantage to have this super great handling because of the low center of gravity. That's making it so much sportier in the feeling than the non-EV versions, which would be comparable like a Volvo S60 in this case than here. Although the overall weight is way higher, it doesn't feel like that, you know. So also a lot of fun experience here. We have 20-inch wheels mounted here with the performance pack in the Polestar 2, which is then a little bit unfair in comparison. I wanted to get one without the performance pack. It doesn't change anything of the acceleration here with the Polestar. It just changes the bigger wheels and also the stiffer suspension. So the better comparison would have been without the performance pack. I also had this car, you know, on order, but then, you know, someone else crashed it before I could get it, and then we had to take one with the performance pack again. So sorry for that. But the thing is here, suspension-wise, yes, it's once again stiff because of the performance pack. So I also urge you not to pick the performance pack with the Polestar 2, have more comfort in suspension. But the difference in chassis-wise, suspension-wise, what you feel here is, with the Tesla Model 3, you feel like the chassis is flexing all the time underneath you, and you're more sitting on the vehicle, and the vehicle is working underneath you. Here with the Polestar 2, I feel better chassis work. You feel integrated with the vehicle. You more feel one with the whole vehicle and the chassis and so on. So that's where the Polestar is leading to me. Now one more acceleration when we are already at speed. I'll also put it a little bit bigger now. Let's go. Once again, well done, and yeah, good handling and controlled feeling. Once again here also high-speed cornering. As I feel more united with the vehicle, I also have the feeling I can drive this one faster than the Model 3 and still with feeling safe. So this is now in the driving part where the Polestar 2 is better to me. You feel safer at higher speeds in that vehicle, just chassis-wise and how you are connected with the car. Definitely, but I can already see that one other thing is speaking majorly against the Polestar 2. So this was of course now including speed tests and so on, but I already see in the energy consumption that the Tesla Model 3 is the way more efficient vehicle. This will be super crucial for your long-term costs for running the vehicle, and of course also for general efficiency and the range. So once again, when range is the issue and you really have even fun or want to have a more budget decision for more efficiency, then definitely we can already say that the Tesla Model 3 is your way to go. However, one other thing here, the assistance systems, the autopilot in the Tesla Model 3, first of all, marketing-wise, I think it's even dangerous to call it that way. It should not be called autopilot because it is not one, and it's not that good as marketing suggests. I usually do not use the autopilot when driving Tesla Model S, Model X, Model 3 because it has so many false positives or false negatives, both. So sometimes there's a warning when there's nothing, then the lane is not being kept correctly and so on. So I'm sick of the autopilot in the Tesla. It makes so many mistakes. I think it's rather a useless feature. I really have to say it that way, that strictly. Here, the assistance system of the Polestar 2 is definitely better. Not on the top of the game as we know maybe from the German manufacturers. And once again, I'm not selling any German vehicles. I have no bias in there, no stakes in German car manufacturers whatsoever. It's just that their assistance systems are more elaborate. That's just fact. And here, the pilot assistant here in the Polestar 2, at least they call it assistant, not. They have pilot, but pilot assist. You get that? Pilot assist, autopilot. And here you can rely on that a little bit more. Of course, always also keep your hands at the steering wheel, and then the lane is being kept a little bit better. Definitely. It's not the most natural lane keeping assist, so you do feel the movements that are not that smooth, But here at the moment the car is steering, you see it also keeps the lane in a corner. Oh, by the way, the turning indicator has such a unique and sophisticated sound. Cool. Yeah, and now riding up the hill, comparing it also once again to the Model 3. And what you also feel is the Model 3 sits lower, like normal classic sedan style. The Polestar 2 is not SUV, but it already has some kind of crossover feeling, so you feel you're sitting higher in that vehicle. That also transports something of that driving feeling. So for cruising on the motorway and longer term, I would then favor the Polestar 2. However, now in this lower speed agility driving, that is very interesting. So at higher speeds, once again, the Tesla Model 3 doesn't feel so good. Because there are also the effects of the stiffer chassis here from the Polestar 2 I feel are more significant. However, then here at lower speeds agility driving, the lower positioning of the Model 3 plays a big role and makes it more fun to drive, I would say. The Polestar 2 is also a lot of fun to drive here and does it very well. But definitely the lower orientation of the Model 3 is, to me, together with the more precise steering, then a factor that at lower speeds agility driving, the Tesla Model 3 feels better and is more fun. This is a very interesting finding. I wouldn't have expected that. So, wow, I mean, it's so interesting to compare these two cars because so many things are different. Yeah, getting out of the corner, very nice, but there also I feel the rear wheel bias of the Model 3 does it a little bit better. Yeah, I would have expected the Polestar 2 to be way better than the Model 3 in this test here, but it's still good, definitely. But I really have to say that the Model 3 did it better than I would have expected in this case, considering also, that the chassis here basically feels better. Whew, this will be a close call. A lot of things speak for the Polestar 2, a lot of things speak for the Model 3, or maybe, I think we'll end up with the Polestar 2 having, something speaking for it, but more for Tesla Model 3. Let's conclude. And now to our conclusion for today, Tesla Model 3 versus Polestar 2. What an interesting test. This has been awesome indeed. And on the factual side, you really have to say everything speaks for the Tesla. Way more efficient, way higher in the range. So, 500 kilometers or like some 350 miles is really realistic. If you go very efficient, even 600 kilometers or 400 miles, whereas with the Polestar, higher energy consumption and rather towards this 400 kilometers or 250 miles, maximum then of 450 kilometers or some 270 miles. So that really speaks for Tesla. Also the whole technology concept and so on, more things you can do with the infotainment, with the software, the constant updates you get and so on and so on. This once again speaks for the Tesla, and also the bigger trunk. This is also better with the Tesla. However, the loading of the trunk is better with the Polestar 2 with this with this hatch that opens very well. And to me, this could be a crucial factor also because in the Polestar 2, I could get a mountain bike in with a demounted front wheel. In the Tesla Model 3, rather not, or it will be a lot of pain to put that in. Interior-wise, both with a very unique concept, really cool, definitely. The Polestar 2, to me, a little bit more sophisticated, I think, from the interior. And the Polestar 2, you feel like being in a true cockpit. The Tesla Model 3 is a more futuristic concept, more open feeling. Chassis-wise, while driving, the Tesla Model 3 is flexing too much, I think, whereas the Polestar 2 feels like it is an experienced chassis, and of course it profits from this experience the Volvo Group has over the years. So, it's really a tough decision because on the factual side, everything speaks for Tesla. Also, pricing-wise, you can go with the standard range model with the Tesla, no problem, and save a lot of money. With the Polestar 2, there's now also the entry-level version, but you have to go for the more sophisticated dual motor one because of the bigger battery. So the Tesla is so efficient that you can also go with the smaller battery. The Polestar 2 is not that efficient. You have to go for the bigger battery. Trust me on this. If efficiency and range is the crucial factor for you and pricing and price performance wise, Tesla Model 3 is the clear winner for today. But to me, the emotional winner from the coolness factor and the want to have factor, there I think it's more about the Polestar 2. So at the end of the day, it's a decision between what's better on paper and what's better design-wise and, you know, from this fun to have it factor. More and more competition in the EV sedan segment with the Nio ET5. For example, challenging the VW ID7, the Ioniq 6, the Tesla Model 3 or the BMW i4. And here is Thomas in Autogefühl. We'll find out all about this vehicle. Is it their most important car now? Everything in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go. Here with the front, really clean design. The headlamps, the daytime running light here is really slim integrated. And in this color here, it's called Aerospace Blue. 4.79 m or 189 inches is the length here of the ET5, so a mid-size sedan. Wheels 19 or 20 inch. These here are also the bigger 20 inch. You can also get these contrasting brake calipers. And you can see this rather classic design shape here, strong hip area in the rear. Light strip goes all the way across the vehicle, very consistent design language. Top speed is 200 kilometers an hour or 125 miles an hour. And the acceleration figure here with the all-wheel drive model is 4 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour in that Sport Plus mode. So we have one electric motor in the rear and one in the front. And turning indicators, well, in the front, looks quite fancy, doesn't it? In the rear, a very slim integration here, and it's actually quite wide. It's better than if you think about the tiny indicators of a Tesla Model 3, for example. By the way, every ET5 not only comes with a couple of cameras on the outside, but also here with the LiDAR, the laser sensor. More colors next to our Aerospace Blue. Here, this is called Taxi Sun-Base Yellow, or what about a brighter Stratosphere Blue? And finally, a Star Gray. That's quite fancy, isn't it? As for the battery sizes, either 75 kWh or 100 kWh. For later, they also promise a semi-solid state battery, which is even bigger. Recharging, well, that's the thing about this vehicle. So a peak of 140 or 125 kWh, depending on the size. That means 30 minutes from 10 to 80% state of charge for the small battery, even 40 minutes for the bigger battery here with DC charging. They don't have an emphasis on the quick recharging because they also have the battery swap technology. And this works with separate battery swap stations. They have already a very huge infrastructure of that in China. There it is working very well. Customers at least say that. And they also want to establish that in Europe. It will be a big challenge if they can supply enough battery swap stations to make that system work. This is the key fob. It looks like, I don't know, maybe like a token you have, you know, somewhere. I don't know what's reminding you about that. Then here you can see when I open the doors, they are flush door handles and they come towards you. Did you see that? Also, you know, really comes towards you automatically like that. Interesting. And door closing sound. Well, these are frameless and they are just very rare frameless doors which sound good. These do not. Then inside of the doors we can see the integration of the ambient lighting. We'll soon also see it in tunnel. Soft touch materials. Looks like good build quality and very interesting materials being used. Here's some fabric, and here also at the steering wheel is all vegan interior, so no animals are being harmed for this interior, and you can get different colors. This is the gray one. You can also get beige, black, or more like a, you know, like greenish note or mint, they say. Let's get inside. And there's one thing that is kind of astonishing about this vehicle, and that is actually here the front seat. And we know we've driven the EL7 or ES7, depending on the market the name is called, or the bigger sedan, the ET7, and they were actually fine as for the seating position. But here, the ET5, it's a smaller model, but you can maybe already see it right here. For me, with 189 or 6'2", I mean, there is headroom left to this panoramic roof, but in the front, I feel like I'm in a tiny vehicle, and it's not that tiny, you know what I mean? So this is to me the key problem of this vehicle. If you are tall, you feel caged in here in the front. Yeah, but besides that, the seat itself is not bad at all. Interior cockpit overview consisting of 12.8 vertical screen and 10.2-inch digital instruments, and you either get the Nio Halo, that's like a more flat integration, or here the Nio Mate with this ball with eyes, and then you can say, hey Nio. Hey Nio.
Hey.
How are you doing?
Thanks for asking. Everything is great here.
Yes! Okay. Thing is, the basic layout of the vehicle, especially here on the interior, it does remind you of Tesla. Last time we had some discussions with it, and people said like, yeah, just because it's a vertical screen, it's not Tesla. But everyone who gets in this vehicle says, oh, that's like Tesla. And to me, this is a sign, that they look towards Tesla, which is no wonder because they went forward with electric vehicles and then everyone else followed. And you have a lot of other manufacturers that have also copied the things. And here it is well done. All the materials, everything, how is, the build quality on the interior, how it feels and looks, everything is very well done and organized. Personally, I like more physical buttons and also to adjust the steering wheel, for example, with a separate column and the climate unit, but that counts for all manufacturers and all recent things we have seen. Futuristic controls of the window levers. This is, by the way, up and this is down. I would have made it maybe the other way around. And the door opens here. Digital instruments, clean, easy, very good to read. Here it says showroom mode, but when we take this car on the open road, of course, there's the proper mode available. Middle console here, this is the mode for the drive mode selection while driving, inductive charging pad. Then here, cup holders are somewhat adaptive, and this middle armrest here, you can actually fold to both sides, and there's more space underneath. Infotainment system, the climate unit is always here in the lower part. This is the home screen with the GPS. It's actually quite responsive, does a good job. Then these are the controls, and the adjustment for the steering wheel is also then the same way like Tesla does it. Nio can also be activated or deactivated in some way, so depending on how you prefer it. Rear seating area, let's try. So the legroom is actually fine, but I can't move my feet under the seat properly. It needs to be higher, but that's a problem because it's already that high for the front driver. Yeah, so that's not ideal indeed. And also here the angle of my legs. Headroom does work with this panoramic roof. So overall it works for 5 tall adults, more or less, but not ideal indeed. And this panoramic roof here, by the way, is a fixed one, also without a cover. Trunk or boot, 390 liters. You see here a separate sedan opening. The width here is 1.40 meters, so good dimension indeed, and the length also about 1.40 meters. You're just, of course, always limited in the height in this concept here with 50 centimeters or 20 inches. Comparable to the Ioniq 6, I would say. The ID7, for example, has the advantage that it has this fast big opening, just opens wider. The Model 3, of course, more or less the same here as well. But it has a little bit more space as for the depth. Is there a trunk? Actually, no. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the Nio ET5, this mid-size sedan. And we start here with some city traffic, because this will also be a quite frequent use case. Well, it feels like a small vehicle indeed, but not only on the positive side, because here in the front, told you in the interior part as well, I feel like driving a tiny vehicle. I mean, I feel like I'm almost sitting on the hood because the seat doesn't go lower. So for tall drivers, not ideal. There in the bigger sedan brother model, the ET7, I definitely felt more at home. Here now I can already set the cruise control in this inner city motorway, so to speak. And then also here the lane is being kept. You can see here pretty smooth. So the assistance systems so far work very well indeed. We also have a blind spot monitor. You can see that the side mirror is flashing. So everything covered as for that. That's also the thing about this vehicle. You buy it and have some options and then everything is immediately covered, basically. The steering feel is actually quite good. So I have a feeling for everything. I have deactivated a lot of the assistance systems already, like, like the beeping and Nio and stuff. But still, even if you deactivate some stuff, this car is always beeping, blinging, blip, blip, blip somewhere. So yeah, I can just recommend to set it up thoroughly once and try to deactivate most of the stuff. This will help. Yeah, you hear that. Also when you hear activate the cruise control, beep beep, you can almost play music with that. Yeah, I think they have for the European market already drawn back some of the stuff. I think some work there still has to be done. But the overall hardware feeling of the vehicle is actually quite good. I feel also from the layout, from the driving and so on, yes, definitely a competitor to the Tesla Model 3. This one here, however, more expensive than told you earlier. We have the competitors of Hyundai Ioniq 6, the VW ID7, BMW i4, maybe 2. And the thing is, size-wise, I feel it comes close to the Tesla Model 3, especially here in the front cockpit and so on. Seating comfort-wise, also, there I feel that especially the VW ID7 is better as for the seating comfort. The Ioniq 6 a little bit more, and the BMW i4 actually is also better, a little bit in the seating comfort. But this one here definitely good now. As for the range, we're driving the one with 100 kilowatt hours battery, so the bigger battery that's available at this moment. And indeed, it is quite efficient. So we could score so far on our test drives here today some 20 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers. And that leads to a real world range in good temperatures as we have today, very mild temperatures of around 500 kilometers or 300 miles. In winter times, it more goes into 400 kilometers or 250 miles. But overall, it's actually something you can very well live with. And here once again, left and right, I have very good feeling for the car. It feels kind of sporty indeed. Because it is so tiny in the front, that feeling, it almost feels like you would be driving a small go-kart or something, you know? So a very interesting driving feeling. Here, check out this in the corner. Yeah, it feels really planted, and at the same time, the suspension is actually more comfortable than in the Tesla Model 3. The VW ID7 is also really good from the suspension. They also offer an adaptive suspension. So in that respect, also the ID7 is better, I feel. But I think although we have the very heavy, big battery here, it feels surprisingly light. Yeah, when I exceed the speed limit, there's also this warning. There is a new regulation that when you have new vehicles now, that you put the registration to, do the homologation, you have to have this speed warning by law, at least in the EU. Yeah, that's something I really don't like about new cars, that so many new regulations are there. On one hand, they can be helpful. On the other hand, they can just be annoying, even when exceed the speed by 1 kilometer or something. And then the question is, how do you integrate that? How often this beeping comes, how intensive, how loud it is, and so on. And here, it's still, in comparison to other vehicles I've experienced, quite annoying. You can deactivate these beeps, but then regulation is that as soon as you restart the vehicle, it's on again. Then let's go to Sport Plus mode and wait for that green traffic light, because there's a speed camera and maybe they take a nice shot of us. That was 0 to 60 kilometers an hour acceleration. And 60 kilometers was the speed limit, so obviously the speed camera also did not intervene. Yeah, sometimes you have to take some risks. Just for you, of course. Yeah, not risk as for safety. A clear way here. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So, wow. So the official figure is 4 seconds to 1 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour in the Sport Plus mode. And the good thing is, that's really transparent feature here. They tell you when you have which acceleration feature here. In Sport mode, 5.9. In the Sport Plus mode, 4 seconds. And then you know what to expect, actually. We have a lot of other electric vehicles that have Sport mode, and the throttle input changes, but then the peak power stays the same, and you have the same acceleration when you pin it down. But here, obviously, they followed a different strategy. So here in the Sport mode, it's really, really aggressive on the throttle. Most of the time, you leave it in the comfort mode, and you still have a lot of power then. As for the recuperation, it does decelerate, and then the last bit maybe you do with your brakes. So I wouldn't say it's not a one-pedal driving feeling as we know from Tesla, but maybe something in between Tesla and some other EV manufacturers.
Stay focused.
I thought I turned off Nomi. It even says it's muted. Well, you have two possibilities. This Nomi Mate, but the standard for this vehicle would be the Nomi Halo. Then you still have some voice functions and so on, but you don't have this Nomi Face. And I think I would get rid of the Nomi Face as soon as possible. Well, and more acceleration from 100 kilometers an hour. 150. Now it's slowing down. 180. Pretty quick. 190. And 200 top speed. 200 kilometers an hour. 125 miles an hour. Yeah, when we have German Autobahn, then we need to show you this. It was fitting very well. It was also still quite silent indeed, so noise insulation really good. So we were just driving the BMW 7 Series yesterday at an equal speed, and it wasn't too much more silent or something. So wow, I'm really surprised how silent this one is at really high speeds. Wow, I really don't have to raise my voice that much. That is well done. So you really feel that the hardware of the vehicle is really, really good. Wow. Pretty impressed by the high-speed performance. I mean, they're clearly not building the cars intentionally for high speed, and here lane change is also quite strong steering feel now, so we hardly have that nowadays. Yeah, really surprised how much feedback it delivers. It feels very planted also on the road, even at high speeds. And that's of course always the good test. They say when you can make it on the German Autobahn, you can make it anywhere. Yeah. Don't they say that about New York? Yeah, but I mean, of course, as for vehicles and so on, that's why we also do the German motorway test and always. But that's really nice. Also here the lane change here, like this, at higher speeds. Doesn't shake up or something. At the same time, the suspension is not uncomfortable. So, yeah, it's a very, very good driving behavior indeed. And the efficiency is also there. So my biggest criticism point in driving remains the space here in the front as for the driver. That's a critical thing, definitely. So as a tall person, you don't feel so much at home then here in the front driver's seat. Here in the tunnel, by the way, we can see something of the ambient lighting right there. It's a very nice integration, not too visible, but I think it's a subtle integration. And one thing we have experienced now, noise-wise, stick with the point that the wind insulation and so on is really good. But at some point, we had some noise that was appearing when we were not filming on camera, like a noise from the middle console or something. And I think it was related to a higher speed driving as well, but it was appearing and then disappearing again. Not sure what that was. Yeah, can't replicate it actually, but it was kind of annoying. So definitely we have to mention that. Pricing is somewhat 60,000 euros for the 75 kilowatt-hour battery and around 70,000 euros for the 100 kilowatt-hour battery if you buy the battery. This is a competitive pricing in the premium segment. The good thing for the customer is that options-wise, you don't have to pick so much. Everything is always included, basically. They also have the strategy that you lease the battery, then there's a lower entry price, but then you have a monthly lease, and then you can also use the battery swap. What? That was 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour. What? This is a driving review of the BMW i4 as the sporty M50. Here with Thomas and Autogefühl, let's go. Mid-size segment, but the BMW i4 is not an electrified 3 Series, platform-wise yes, but
It's more like an electrified BMW 4 Series Grand Coupe. Soon more to that. Here in the front we can already see a huge double kidney right there, but it's closed. Has this M badge right here because this is the sporty M50 version. There are also base versions available. Then in the blue accentuations here around the logo, signalizing the electric lineup, and the color here for today, a true Thomas blue. This is Portimao blue, but in the matte styling. So there's also a metallic Portimao blue available, but here then in the frozen style, how BMW calls it. Headlamps, standard LED, optional this year, the laser light then with blue accentuations. The length is at 4.78 meters or 188 inches, so size-wise this plays in a region of a Tesla Model 3. Price-wise, something different, more to that later. Wheels come from 17-inch to maximum 20-inch. Here the M50, the sporty model, comes with 18-inch standard and then also optional these huge 20-inch wheels. And when you go for these, you also have in the rear these extended mud guards because the tires are just so much wider. The door handles are very, very integrated and this matte paint is so lovely. However, unlike in the iX, where it just looks like this and you can open it, here they also fold up a little bit. It's also interesting. Then you also have some wind efficiency gains here from the side mirrors, and this is also then with this shadow line that you have it in a black contrast. Overall very cool and elegant styling, and indeed is more like a 4 Series Grand Coupe because it also has the fastback opening, soon more to that. And suspension wise, this is really interesting. It automatically gets air suspension in the rear. But the dampers, nor front nor rear, are not adaptive. Optionally, you can get an adaptive suspension. It's called adaptive M suspension. That one is also standard in the M50, but then also with an even stiffer setup here. Looking really forward to drive this one. Why didn't they go for air suspension in the front as well? They say they want a more direct contact to the road, and this platform here actually does not allow air suspension on the front axle just from the building space, and they also want it to be a little bit more precise when turning in and turning out so that it doesn't, change the weight of the car in the front too much. With the electric vehicles, there will be no differentiation between M performance models and true M models. It's just the M models. That's a new thing coming here with the EV lineup. So M50 is kind of then a true M model for them. All-wheel drive, one electric motor in the front, one in the rear. The rear one is stronger. If you go for the eDrive 40 version, you will only have rear-wheel drive. This one here goes top speed 225 kilometers an hour or 140 miles an hour. The rear-wheel drive version goes 190 kilometers an hour or 118 miles per hour. Guess you can live with that. In the lower part here, a diffuser style, strong fins here also in a vertical way. So overall, I think, especially in the 3/4 rear perspective, they really nailed the design, didn't they? Just a minor detail, by the way, these are these, 3-dimensional plastic number plates, and indeed they are more sustainable because if you compare them to the metal plates, they here use less resources in production and also they can be recycled better than the classic ones. Interesting, right? Sadly, there is no frunk. This one here is going from the same assembly line like the BMW 4 Series Grand Coupe or the BMW 3 Series, so they are not using an EV purpose-built platform. This is one of the drawbacks then. But yeah, also their all-electric iX doesn't have a frunk either, so BMW not so much about the frunks. However, we can also talk about the power figures and the battery figures. 81 kilowatt hours net. It's actually quite a reasonable size for that, and projected range 500 kilometers or 300 miles. We'll see in the driving part if this is true. And acceleration figures here for the M50, 3.9 seconds to 1 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. And then 5.7 it would be for the eDrive 40, the base model then with rear-wheel drive. And recharging, 11 kilowatt AC or 205 kilowatt DC. Then from 10 to 80% in 30 minutes at an according charging station. Car key looks like this. It's the classic 3 Series car key, but slim and light, and I really like it. Classic stuff. And then door handles once again fold out like this. What about the door closing sound? It's frameless though, and yeah, here the door closing sound is really bad actually. Nice, however, the interior build quality, soft touch here, and also how the handles are being, formed out. So Hofmeister King design clue for the inside. And then the M50 comes with the M steering wheel, also with contrast stitches then here on the inside. The i4 in general with the blue BMW electric badge.
And then seating-wise, this is very interesting. These here are the sport seats, and this is also the animal skin equipment, because you can see it here when it's like in this, many separate, parts. There you can see that this one then is from animal skin origin. However, standard here for the M50 model would be a surface mix of Alcantara and Sensatec, animal-free. And for the base seat, you start with fabric and Sensatec mix. And for the i4, you can also get pure Sensatec seats. They are also perforated, beige, black, brown, or red, so 4 colors available. The ventilation function is not yet available, but BMW told me they are working on a perforated, ventilated Sensatec seats, and this would actually also be the most choice or the most frequent choice for the majority of customers. Oh, by the way, why did I switch to the big microphone here for the interior? Well, there are so many electric interferences that you hear that more on, the attachment microphone. This one here covers it a little bit better. Seating position here in the front, we really know it. It feels like in the 3 Series or like in a 4 Series, completely normal. It's not the most comfortable for long journeys, I have to say. Steering wheel, however, can be adjusted up and down, in and out, and so on. So you feel that it's not an electric platform, otherwise you would have more space in the front. Headroom, by the way, without the panoramic roof, here 1m86, 6'1", enough left, but again, it's rather a little bit cramped. Cockpit overview, again, similar to 3 Series or 4 Series, but then you have this widescreen cockpit, 12.3-inch left, 14.9-inch right, this curved display. This, of course, pretty fancy, but the thing is, then there are no manual dials for the climate unit. You do not have manual climate dials, however, at least a manual volume knob. In that M50 here, nice carbon fiber decor element. In the digital instruments, we can see left side the speed, right side the e-power, and on the lower end, then you see the recuperation. In the middle part, you can adjust what you want to see, for example, also map info. And the head-up display is, of course, always a nice option to have. It's nice that we still have traditional dials here at the steering wheel, left side for cruise control, and right side here, for example, for the volume. And then there's operating system 8, completely new. This is one of the menu styles, but I think it looks kind of outdated a little bit. Climate unit always stays here in the screen. That's, of course, not that practical. You can use voice control. Yeah, but manual climate dials, most of us agree that it would be more practical. Then here on the left side, usually, you know this from the OS 7 or OS 6, here you have hotkeys to CarPlay. That's actually quite good. But then again, below that would be the car menu. And that is then here, hidden in this whole thing in live vehicle. But why can't I access this here, right again at the hotkey part left? So I don't really get it. However, what's good is with the new system here, it's actually, better as for the CPU power. So here, zooming in and out at the map, this is actually very, very good overall. And here the CarPlay, nice integration like this. And we also have a decent sound from that Harman Kardon sound system. Woo! Yay! This one still has the typical BMW wings light in the top. Nice carbon fiber cover here for the middle part. And then typical inductive charging pad here for your phone. This one still gets really hot. In the newer vehicles, they also will have a ventilation system for that. Then adaptive cup holders right there. And the shifting lever with a nice blue electric accentuation. And here you can also pick the driving modes. And the most power you will only have in the not only sport, but sport boost mode. Classic control knob here, as we know from the 3 Series. And also here underneath the armrest, now USB-C charger and some more space. Well, and here's the biggest problem about this vehicle. Once again, due to the platform, I can hardly fit here in the back part. Headroom is quite okay, but legroom, it's kind of not existent for tall adults. And in the middle part, I can't even move here in the back part. It's not too uncomfortable from the bench itself and so on, but just not enough space, definitely, considering the length of the car. Here, USB-C chargers and the rear climate unit. There you can see how big this middle tunnel is, once again derived from the combustion engine platform. And here, cup holders for the middle armrest. Pricing-wise, around 60,000 euros or dollars for an entry model, and here for the M50, around 70,000. That's of course way more expensive than the Tesla Model 3. However, you can also compare them to the more powerful ones. But what's better here with the i4 than with the Model 3, it does have a fast break opening of the hatch, and that, you know, with one with A6, 6 with one, I can stand underneath it, easy access in and out, maybe even putting a bicycle in and so on. This is of course the more practical approach. And this goes 470 to 1290 liters. And the length here, this is the channel where the length is measured properly still. Yeah, a little bit less than a meter or 40 inches in length. And the width here is a little bit more limited. This is then here 90 centimeters in width, or about 35 inches. And the height to the cover, 48 centimeters or 18 inches. Overall height and a little bit more. You can also just pop out this cover like this here. You can, by the way, have a 12-volt power supply. For folding the seats, you have to go around them to rear compartment like this. 1/3, 2/3 split. However, you can also have this ski hatch, so then you can also do an individual split like this. And that's then the maximum setup. Thanks to the seats I would be driving, 1.75 meters or 68 inches. Welcome to Thomas's Active Driving Lounge with the BMW i4 M50. Sport boost mode, maximum acceleration, let's go. What? That was 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour. What? Holy moly. I mean, yeah, it was slight, a little bit downhill, that part, but what the hell? You also heard this sound theme they have installed here, cooperation by Hans Zimmer. Whew. And if you compare it, yeah, I mean, to something we heard before, Porsche Taycan or something, Audi e-tron GT, it's not the, you know, strongest or harshest sound. It's still somewhat subtle, but definitely here in the sport boost mode, the strongest one. One more time where you can see the speed because of the different camera mount. Let's go. Oh my goodness. Wow. This is really something. But the steering feeling, especially while accelerating, is very unusual BMW. It kinda even feels out of control a little bit. Not too happy with that actually. Yeah, kinda mixed, no, not mixed feelings, bad feelings about this indeed. Yeah, but you know, slalom-wise, by the way, how the chassis reacts and so on, this is really superb, but once again, there also feeling in the steering, not to my liking indeed. All-wheel drive, one electric motor in the front, one in the rear. The rear one is more powerful, and the chassis itself and the steering and so on feels kind of like BMW 3 Series or the 4 Series Grand Coupe. What is different here is definitely that we have more weight. So when we're, for example, going downhill, the car pushes a little bit more to the corners, yet at the same time we have a lower center of gravity because the battery pack is so low and centralized in the vehicle, and that again helps the agile driving feeling. So considering that this one here is way heavier than the combustion engine models, you don't feel it actually, because it also kind of sucks you to the ground due to that low center of gravity, and that's really cool. As for the steering feeling, you know, it's actually quite okay. So I feel they also improved it if you compare it to the 3 Series and the 4 Series. There was also always this kind of issue that, you know, it didn't give too much feeling in the low degree angle. It is still the case that you have more feeling here, you know, when you're at these, you know, 90 degrees turn or something, and not so much in this, you know, -2 +5 degrees. But I feel they have improved that a little bit. Maybe a little bit more progressiveness like here and a little bit less here. That would be my wish. But people can also maybe argue, yeah, okay, in that way I can, you know, in a more relaxed manner drive just straight on an Autobahn or something. But overall, it's still fun to drive this car around. So it delivers great driving agility. Oh, kids next to the road, and always, of course, really careful. Recuperation as soon as I lift the throttle, or also when I hit the brakes even more. There's this adaptive function, you can see it here in the instruments. So when the car sees there's a car in front of me, then there's harsher recuperation. And that's to me a very good, very good way not to use a B braking mode, like or one pedal driving feeling, because here in that way you kind of have both worlds. So when there's no one in front of you, the car is rolling. When there's someone in front of you, the car is automatically applying a strong recuperation. I think that's a very interesting approach, definitely, and because sometimes you feel like, yeah, rolling is a little bit more comfortable. And sometimes strong recuperation is better and also safer, for example, when there's someone in front of you. And this adaptive recuperation mode could be actually the solution then for the future. So there's also a better transition for people from ICE cars, that they don't have this one pedal driving feeling at once. So yeah, I think that is really something, very interesting approach they found here for the regenerative braking. Oh, what's your take on that? And now that boost uphill. Wow, that sound experience definitely enhances the acceleration experience, definitely. And the thing that's really interesting, so when you have that boost, the steering gets super light, and that is a little bit, I'm not sure, is it because the car really literally lifts from the ground or something? But that's definitely a little bit irritating. To me, overall the steering is a little bit too light, and I think definitely, especially if you go from in a sports mode, it should actually be heavier. By the way, here at 70 kilometers an hour, noise insulation is really great, so it's a very silent atmosphere here, especially when you, for example, go back to a comfort mode and then you don't have this sound feedback and so on. So you can also use it as a cruiser and be like really calm. And the thing is really, since it's not on this EV platform, for usage of space, that's negative, definitely. If you, however, seek a good transition from a combustion engine vehicle to electric vehicle, this might be something, because again, this car does not feel too different from a 3 Series or from a 4 Series, yet at the same time you have the electric boost and you still have a great handling, really, because of the low center of gravity. So it's a lot of fun to drive this one. Overall, it feels really crisp. It rather feels a little bit like the I would say M Performance model of 3 Series or 4 Series, like the 340i models. This one would be, I think, the best in comparison. The true M models combustion engine are a little bit stiffer as for suspension and so on. This suspension here, the M adaptive suspension, is tuned on a little stiffer note than it would be if you go for that adaptive option with the normal suspension. But I think it still represents a quite nice compromise. By the way, even in the comfort mode here, you also have enough power. For example, here, overtaking maneuver of this tractor. Yeah, so that was also 50 to 100, easily done. But really, the feeling in the steering wheel is not adequate to the vehicle. That is, to me, the biggest criticism point. And suspension-wise, I'm not a fan of mixing suspension technologies. They have air suspension in the rear, but not at the front. Yeah, they said that due to this platform being used, usually you don't have air suspension there in the front. You cannot really do that, and they also want a more precise turning in and turning out and so on. And they would need to use the bigger platform to offer air suspension in the front. Yet at the same time they went for air suspension in the rear because of the heavy battery pack, and also when you then put some load in the trunk and so on. But to me, this is not really mixing that well. It might be something because I'm really finely tuned my body to feel these soft nuances, but I feel that the rear is a little bit softer. It's actually quite good, and that the front is a little bit stiffer, sportier. And I don't think it's a good mix. Either go for the smooth setup, both front and rear, or go for a stiff setup, front and rear. It's something talking about a very high level with a fine nuance tuning, but still I don't think that's a good decision. So definitely great boost, great handling. Steering feel, they need to improve that, make it a little bit stiffer, make it more natural. Yeah, and suspension technology wise, I think it would have been better if they left out the air suspension in the rear and just put some good adaptive dampers on it, front and rear, and that would have been better definitely for the whole driving performance. We'll also head out to some faster driving to test more about the noise insulation and so on. But overall, I think we can already say from driving, this is here for a transition from combustion engine to the electric vehicles. And of course, still yet to come, all about the efficiency and the range of this one here. And on the motorway, that was 50 to 130. Wow, that goes so quick. It's really astonishing. Wow. And now at a normal motorway speed of 120 kilometers an hour, so like 70 miles an hour. Let's set it to the cruise control. It's also, you know, we can switch to normal cruise control and also the assisted driving mode. Then we also have a lane keeping assist. Let's see how that one plays out. So if it works in a very smooth way or not. Noise insulation so far at that speed, very good, very silent. Of course, you don't have any sound then from the normal electric drive if you're in the comfort mode, just the, you know, electric sound experience there, the artificial one. So overall, you do get a calmer feeling because there's no like, you know, like sonorous sound from that engine running all the time. That might also be an effect where you say like, hey, that's calming for me, you know. So I'm also still looking forward for electric vehicles that are actually just mimicking the ICE sounds. I think it would be a better idea than letting them all sound like spaceships, you know. So because we like to have, you know, like 6-cylinder or 8-cylinder sounds because it touches something very basic in our, you know, feeling and understanding. So there's even that theory that it reminds of us being, you know, like a baby or even embryo inside the mother's body and feeling and hearing the heartbeat, that these low frequency sonorous sounds are somewhat calming to us, and that's why we like a V8 sound. And when this is actually true, why can't I just like select V8 sound, V6 sound here in that menu? It would just be software, you know. Or open it for third-party applications, put an API in there, and then people can program that themselves or whatever, you know. So that would be really something that would be way cooler than giving millions of dollars to the, you know, to the Hollywood composer, you know, for this. I don't see like the big benefit in that one, you know. Make something more fun and cool. That's my take on it. Looking forward to your comments. So let's induce this lane keeping assist. Let's go a little bit to the left, to the right. Let's see how the lane is being kept when I'm moving up to the left. Yeah, there it is. So a subtle intervention. Then we also have a blind spot monitor. There it is, a yellow triangle. And when I put the turning indicator, then it's also flashing. So assistance systems, very well done, very well integrated as for that, and still a reasonable motorway vehicle. As I said earlier, the offering of space already in front is not that great actually. Everything feels in similar seating position wise and so on, just as you would be driving a normal 3 Series or a 4 Series in that respect actually. Looking at the widescreens here while driving, by the way, is pretty nice. However, what's a little bit irritating is climate control. I changed, like when I want to have it come into my hands, just manually here, because in that climate menu you can either switch from balance to dynamic, and that's it. And I cannot really pick like where exactly the vents are coming from, and I'm so used to that. For example, like more power to the feet, or maybe I didn't find it or something, but then it takes too long to find it. So yeah, making things more complicated once again with these new software iterations. And now let's go once again to the Sport Boost mode, because 130 kilometers an hour to, let's see, whatever. That's a 200 kilometers an hour, 125 miles an hour. For this traffic situation, definitely enough, and still good noise insulation and really stable on the road. So yeah, I mean, the surplus in weight is in this case maybe even a good thing in that case, but Once again, the steering feeling, that is the thing that is lacking to be one with the vehicle in that case. Well, and as for the average energy consumption, like 19 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers, so that's some 30 kilowatt hours on 100 miles, means a range of 430 kilometers or 270 miles. That is not as much as promised, but still, you know, somewhat decent result considering it's not an all EV platform. Well, it was critical with some aspects, but nevertheless, the rigidity of the chassis and the driving dynamics and the overall fun and also calmness on the road with this vehicle is excellent, just as we know from the 3 Series or 4 Series Grand Coupe. So there's no denying the fact that they're still ahead in these hardware issues if you also compare Tesla. The Mercedes EQE today, very first time driving it ourselves here, full review on Autogefühl with Thomas, and this is, so to speak, the electric E-Class or electric CLS, depending on how you want to take it. And typical for the EVs, we have a closed front grille. Nice microstar pattern, it's a beautiful feature definitely. But you have this huge black panel, the sensors are hidden behind here, also with the front camera. The headlamps here with a signature and LED is standard. This is the optional digital light for more high beam performance if you like that. It's also the AMG line, what you can see here. That means more sporty accentuations in the lower part, but all again closed off. And this very interesting matte grey paint is called Graphite Grey Magno. Really spectacular, always like to see that. Wheels from 19 to 21 inch. These here are 20-inch wheels with aerodynamic covers, because a lot of aerodynamic losses are happening in the wheel and the wheel arches, and this is actually really good then also for the range and so on, but they don't look that cool. Or what do you think? 4.95 meters or 195 inches is the length. That's about 20 centimeters or 8 inches less or shorter than the Mercedes EQS, the bigger brother. But what they have in common is the same, you know, technology more or less, battery and so on, and this one bow design going from the front to the rear. EQE badge right here. And if you wonder, can you actually open something here? Is there a frunk? No, there is not. They used all the space, for example, also for the HEPA filter that is optionally underneath that one. The only thing you can open here in the front is here, this opening for the wiper fluid. Yeah, that's a funny thing, right, isn't it? And you can also get on top of the AMG line here this night package. Then you have black frames around the windows and also these black mirror caps to make it a little bit more sinister even from the look. Technology-wise, what's also interesting is rear axle steering is available. So the rear wheels turn in the opposite direction than the front wheels. That reduces the turning circle massively and gives you more agility at lower speed driving. 4.5 degrees is the first option, and then optional 10 degrees. And that is basically always in the vehicle. It's just then released by software, this second step then. Yeah, that's a trend I don't like that much in the automotive industry. It reminds me more of like, hey, you have like a medieval gaming thing and buy another sword or something. Yeah, you know what I mean. Then here in the rear, you have the light strip going from left to right. Spectacular design indeed. EQE 500 means this is the all-wheel drive model, also says 4MATIC. One electric motor in the rear, one in the front. Better performance, of course. The EQE 350 would be the one rear-wheel drive only, then you can get the price lower. However, what they do have in common, both with a 91 kilowatt-hour net battery. What is the range? We will do another test here today. Our experience from the Mercedes technology, also from the EQS so far, is that you can round about have, you know, like 400 kilometers, a little bit less, or 250 miles in winter time, and more than summertime and good temperature conditions, more than like 500 kilometers or 350 miles, something like this. But again, another consumption test later on. Here in the AMG line, we also have the black accentuation with this diffuser style in the rear. So overall, especially in that color here, a kind of striking look. But what do you think about the design? Tell me in the comments. Recharging, 11 kilowatt or optional 22 kilowatt AC and 170 kilowatt DC. And indeed, when the battery is preheated, 10 to 80% state of charge in 30 minutes. And a little bit more color choices. This one here is spectral blue, really beautiful color. Yeah, that's what we call Thomas Blue here on Autogefühl. Or a brighter gray color is also available. This one here is Alpine Gray. This was also pretty fancy, doesn't it? Suspensions, you start with a normal steel suspension, optional then air suspension. If you pick the rear-wheel drive model, the EQE 350 by the way, it also gets this plus. That means always the plus model is always the one with the highest range, because the rear-wheel drive only version will have a higher range, a little bit more than the all-wheel drive version. The acceleration figures, by the way, 6.4 seconds here to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour for the rear-wheel drive version. And with our all-wheel drive model, the EQE 500 is less than 5 seconds. Then there are also these EQE AMG versions, 43 and 53. We already have a static episode of that. We will link it in the video description and in the pinned comment. See you later there. But let's first continue with this one. Interesting details here when the door handles are opened. So these are flush handles. So when you're close to vehicles, they disappear for more better aerodynamics. When they open the vehicle, it's like this. And you can also, for example, have keyless entry like this, closing, and you open it by pressing this area. And the thing is, sometimes it doesn't work. There we go. So, but not like 100%. So, and then here, door closing sound is actually quite decent, although they are frameless doors. And then Neotex material is kind of like a neoprene-like structure, feels and looks really cool. Red contrast stitches. AMG line also comes with a microfiber at the inside of the doors. This feels really premium, nice. They call it microcut now. What's not that premium, I think, is one button for that whole memory seating and seat heating. That's one big button. And these handles here for the seat control, they do not move, so they don't give you any feedback. You're kind of like moving in thin air. Don't like it. And also hashtag capacitive BS here for the side window controls. So this is not a good trend, I think. This optional Burmester sound system, this one is great, by the way. And then what about the seats? These here are the AMG line seats. Here also microfiber inside, outside are the red. So this is an animal-free seat indeed. In Germany, you can also get the base seat, so the non-AMG seat with Artico. So it's a full leatherette in black or also in a bright color. In the UK market, you have to go here for the AMG line if you want to go animal free. On the US market, you can get the normal seats in full Artico, bright or black. You can also get the AMG line seats, but the microfiber on them is sadly not available. Steering wheel, they promised also to offer animal-free versions later on. At the moment, not available yet. But there are two forms. This is the AMG steering wheel in the AMG line. The other one has a different form. Actually, this one is a little bit cooler, but actually a very good size. As for the seating comfort, I have to say, so it's not that you sit down here and say like, oh, there's like bad comfort, but it's also not that you sit down and say like, oh, this is the best seat I've ever experienced. So the seating comfort we'll also see later on when we drive. I'm 1.86 or 6'1", maybe a little bit taller, and you know, when I put the seat all the way down, you wonder, is it all the way down? Because it works for me, but it does get very close as for the headroom, so it's nothing for super tall people. This one here is also equipped with the panoramic roof, so this is an option. And the cool thing is it does have a shade. Not all EVs have that, so it has this electric shade. Then you can also open it. It's not only, I did activate the hazard lights, so if you come closer here, you can see I can also completely open it. There we go, and that leaves some light in. But indeed, it's not the segment here then for the tallest people. So in a CLS or in an E-Class, the combustion engine versions of these vehicles, they have nothing in common platform-wise. You sit a little bit better as a tall person, I have to say. In this interior overview, again, what we can see, this hyper screen. This is an option for more than 8,000 euros or dollars. It looks fancy, and you have this 17.7-inch screen next to an additional 12.3 passenger screen, and here 12.3 on the left side. The base setup would be this one, and then a more vertical 12.8-inch screen here in the middle. And I would recommend the base setup. Save the money, and it's also somewhat less complicated. Here the AMG line steering wheel with the two-spoke design looks more modern than the base steering wheel. However, you still have these capacitive controls here everywhere. You can control the right screen with that one volume control, left side cruise control, and here on the left side then this left screen. But while driving, it's definitely harder to control. But design-wise, it looks super fancy. Neotex material here on the top part. There's this mix again between neoprene and microfiber, red contrast stitches, and this beautiful ambient lighting. You can pick different color schemes, and also here when you control the temperature unit, it has this effect that it goes colder or warmer also visually. So ambient lighting wise, this is just beautiful indeed. Zoom more details to the screens. Let's finish up the lower middle console here. Matte wood is also available, that you have less black piano lacquer. I love that, this matte open cell wood, great. Then open this one. Cup holders are somewhat adaptive, but I can tell you, they don't hold, like for example glass bottles, they don't hold them that tight. So they should be a little bit tighter and that doesn't fly around. A lot of space, inductive charging pad, 2 USB-C charger here as well. Then start stop button or also driving mode selection. This is the car key here, by the way. Michelle lifted here. So this one has a good quality feeling, and you have this classic split middle armrest opening with more charging possibility. Instruments, I do have somewhat a problem over that because it stays like this, and it's an open area, so it's prone to glaring. Here I would say it should be a little bit more hidden like classic instruments, and maybe also more in this angle. So in this flat angle it can be a problem when it's really bright. This is the map screen, but you can also have this more classic screen, and you also have more screens available depending on what you want. You can also adjust things in the head-up display here, but with these capacitive buttons on the steering wheel, it's always somewhat hard to control. This looks a little bit weird, doesn't it? But at least you can customize it very well depending on what you actually do prefer. Head-up display available in 2 different versions, the latter one also with augmented reality. You have here the base information, speed, and also some GPS arrows, but of course even more interesting when you have these moving arrows in the head-up display. Here this hyper screen and the central screen, it really has this curved function, and this is pretty cool. We are in downtown Frankfurt today, and look at that, they really built the... Wow, this looks amazing, right? With all the skyscrapers. Of course, it's not available like for all single cities worldwide, but this looks really spectacular. Wow. And I mean, it can be really helpful also while navigating, because this one then also, that's the tower, I'm here, and then I have to go right around it or something. So yeah, definitely very cool feature. And you see, it's also quite responsive, good CPU power. And the thing is it easy to use? That's another question, because you have this, this like the main menu button. This is also quite large, how the apps are oriented and so on. Yeah, but sometimes you feel that when you switch something and you're not sure, like how do I go back again, So this is Apple CarPlay, the integration all the way over the screen right here. Look at that. So this would be the Apple Maps as and then we have the optional Burmester sound system, which is really great in-depth 3D sound. So yeah, that sounds amazing. So for all music lovers, this will actually pay off. And if you wonder why is it more responsive, why is it faster than before? Well, indeed they did a software update now, and this obviously speeds up the system. What about the voice input? Hey Mercedes. Hey Mercedes.
How may I help you?
Activate steering wheel heating.
Steering wheel heating is on.
So that worked. For example, that might be important because then you can separately have the steering wheel heating. Otherwise, you have to combine it with the seat heating. There's no separate button for that. Or what about the route guidance? Let's try that.
What do you want to do?
Drive me to Berlin.
Starting route guidance to Berlin.
So that is also now quicker than before indeed. So overall, a little bit more speed. It's not the fastest system overall yet, but definitely faster than before. You can see the route is already being set here, and it's also optimizing the route still, checking out which charging stations might be the best en route actually. What about a joke maybe? Tell me a joke.
Why did the tomato blush? because it saw the salad dressing.
Okay. Screens. 1, 2, and 3 also. When you are sitting on the passenger seat, then this one here gets activated, and you can also have these nice 3D animations here. Yeah, it's a little bit of a screen overkill, isn't it? But quite responsive, that's cool. And you can do basically everything you can do in the middle screen also here. And it's so important because then you don't have to move your hand over like this a couple of centimeters, but you can stay here. Hashtag irony. So I think it's not really necessary. Yeah, what do you think? Once again, I would stick with the easier setup, pick the standard screen in the middle, leave that passenger screen, save you know, a small car worth of money, and then you don't have this fancy hyperscreen, but your life will be actually easier. Or what's your take on that? There is one reason, however, to go for the hyperscreen and the passenger screen, because then you can watch Autogefühl YouTube while driving, just for the passenger, and the driver is not supposed to look, otherwise it will shut off actually. youtube.com Autogefühl, or when you go to autogefühl.com, that's also a shortcut to it. Oh, thank you so much, by the way, for 600,000 subscribers. You guys are awesome, and if you haven't subscribed yet, hit subscribe button and also activate the notification bell to not miss any of our latest videos, of course. Yeah, thank you again so much. You're the best. Rear seating. First of all, if you have that option of soft close, it also works then here for the rear. Magic. Instead of the doors is really lovely. Both the Neotex and also the microcut microfiber, and also here like the dampening behind it. This I really love. And also here, ambient lighting around this area. This is cool. And also, have you seen with the seats? They also have kind of like this ambient lighting outline. That's really nice. And then you can see in that middle part, it doesn't have like an all flat bottom, probably for rigidity or because they hide some batteries there or something. But let's test it as for the legroom when I would be driving. So when I have the seat, and you can see here, legroom, there's actually plenty of legroom available. So for 4 or 5 tall adults, no problem. Headroom, it does also work for me, but I do, let's say I hit the ceiling with my hair. So it does come close, but it works actually. Can you also probably sit in the middle part? It's a little bit harder than here. Also, you do hit it more here, even here, like this. So yeah, it works maybe for shorter way, but for adults is no problem, also tall ones. Here in this package, by the way, we also have the contrasting seat belts. That looks actually pretty cool. And also here, this microfiber plush material. You see here the bench falls a little bit backwards. To me, that's not ideal for comfort, but some also do prefer it that way. But overall, I think comfort is okay. And indeed, I'll soon show you the trunk. They do not have a fast back opening, because they say you would lose even more headroom than here in this case, because you need to attach that hatch at some point. And then you also have a separate climate control for the rear seats. It does give you some feedback, but once again, this is like one button again, and this is a trend. I hope it doesn't continue. And then lower part, 2 USB-C chargers. I love these details, that they have like this blue illumination. This is lovely, right? Flipping the logo here for the trunk, and you can see it's a normal sedan trunk like in an E-Class, not a fastback opening. The reason is that they would lose more headroom than in the rear. Here the length is 1 meter or 40 inches. The width, however, is just 90 centimeters or 35 inches, a little bit disappointing. And the height here, 55 centimeters or 21 inches. And you can see it's still enough for a normal luggage setup. And this here, hard plastic. I mean, for that price, we could also expect some fabric covering right here, can't we? This one here, by the way, 21-inch wheels, the biggest ones that are available. Of course, it looks sporty, definitely. Here also in the black styling together with the Alpina gray. But there's one drawback, because in the rear the tires are actually so wide, mixed tires as well, and so large that the rear axle steering 10 degrees is not working anymore. Then you are stuck with 4.5 degrees of the rear axle steering. So if you want the full rear axle steering, you have to stick with the 20-inch wheels, and comfort-wise, it's a good idea anyway. And now, very interesting, a second interior exclusively for you. First of all, we have the bright styling in here, bright ceiling, also these bright seats. This is here the animal skin seat, but it would almost look the same in the Artico setup, the animal-free setup. So you can also go for that leatherette in bright or in the black styling. That one available on the US market and also in Germany. And here also, without the top infotainment hyperscreen, here you have then this matte wood surface, so it's wood but with an imprint, very interesting, and you can also pick different stylings. So when you pick the base infotainment system here as it is with the vertical one, you can express yourself more with different decor elements and you don't have that screen overkill. To me, this here is a little bit easier to control, it's a little bit more straightforward. The only disadvantage is when you have the base infotainment screen, like we know from the S-Class or the C-Class in the new generations, you are stuck with the piano lacquer in black right here in the middle console. So you cannot put the matte wood or something as we've seen with the hyperscreen. That's the one downside. However, another advantage is these instruments here have the separate panel and then they are more upright. You remember in the hyperscreen it has more this angle and that way more upright. I can see that one better. So overall I would indeed prefer this very base setup, save the 8,000 or 9,000 euros or dollars and just have a simple control and without that screen overkill. But what would you pick? This setup here, or would you actually go for the hyperscreen and also pay the extra money for it? Tell me in the comments. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge, Mercedes EQE 500, and we're at 80 kilometers an hour and the speed limit here is lifted. Let's go. 130, 160. Woo! Oh my God. 200 kilometers an hour, 125 miles an hour. Let's see the top speed here of that version. Yeah, we're reaching it right now. 215, 216 kilometers an hour. That went quick and it's still, wow, super well to control even at these higher speeds. Whoa. That was also a nice braking sound. Did you hear that? So it also has kind of like a, you know, sound when it's braking. You can activate or deactivate sound experiences. That is actually possible. But by the way, here now, I mean, there was recuperation. And of course, now I also needed to use the rear brakes because that SLK or SLC just went into our lane. So that's always the catch, you know, when you're driving a little bit fast, you have to be very cautious of what's happening in front of you. Didn't have the best feeling for that brake blending, you know, like the transition between recuperation and real brakes. In 90% of the cases, when you don't have stuff like this, in 90% of the normal driving cases, you will not use the real brakes, but recuperation will actually be just fine. So that's actually a very interesting thing. But of course, at some point you will need it. What comes to our mind is, you already heard that, it was extremely silent in here. So the same thing like this, you know, like this additional foam that is applied to the raw chassis in the building process, which is done to the new S-Class and also to the EQS, is also done here to the EQE. And we feel and hear that. Great noise insulation, super silent. And you have to think about these EVs, they don't make any engine noise that would cover, for example, some wind noises. So you might hear it a little bit more present, although it is not the case. But here, wow, super silent experience. That's definitely a great ride. So as for that, also really nice as for the whole Autobahn experience, for example, here on the motorway. And once again, the car remains really stable. As for the rear axle steering, this is very helpful then in situations where you have lower speed, makes the car more agile. At higher speeds, at some point then it steers in a parallel direction. Here we can also test the assistance systems. Here the car is being kept in the lane actually, also with very smooth transitions. And you can, we have to get off here of course. You can of course deactivate at any time, but overall it's not a very intrusive system. I think it's actually very well calibrated. This level 3 autonomous driving we've shown to you with the S-Class and the EQS will not be available for the EQE. The EQE rather thought out to be, yeah, let's say more a driver's vehicle, I would say. Now we can also see I have some guidance in the head-up display. This one here is not equipped with the level 2 head-up display with the augmented reality, but you've maybe seen here, there's augmented reality functions in that screen then here, where we have the camera displayed, and then inside the camera image there are these arrows that guide you then. And this is also a very helpful feature, exactly showing you of where do you have to go actually. So we also have some different driving modes here. You also have some sound feedback. In the sports mode, the sound feedback is being enhanced, for example, and that, for example, right there. So it gives you then a little bit more boost, but of course you can at any time also just throw it out as we've shown to you initially, because that's what people would usually do. Most of the time you will not pick a sports mode in advance, you will just throw it out and that's it. But sound feedback is definitely enhanced, and I also have the circus mode activated. You've maybe seen it here. It's not that visible at daytime, that the ambient lighting is running through a little bit, so it's kind of like animated. At nighttime this can be a little bit too much, and then you might say, hey, I want that maybe just in mono color. So one more time, accelerating from 100 now in the sports mode. Let's go. Michelle's laughing. 160. Plop, 200 kilometers an hour, 125 miles an hour. Yeah, really good X-Factor. And wow, I mean, how silent it is and how well the car is to be controlled at these higher speeds. That's really amazing. And we can also switch around a little bit with the sound experiences. For example, here, but I mean, activate, but then have the option here, and then roaring pulse is possible. That is a more low frequency sound, like a lion, like or silver waves. This has a more high frequency sound, a little bit. Yeah, but the vivid flux is to me the one that is most audible, definitely. Yeah, and
do you
also
have the feeling that it's like a pod racer in Star Wars?
A pod racer in Star Wars, yeah, that could be. As long as there's no young Anakin scenes and no Jar Jar Binks scenes in it, then I'm fine with it. Woo! And here, lane change while accelerating. Great, wow, it's a great feeling for the vehicle. I mean, so silent, so agile. It really feels awesome, and I have to say, it is indeed much more fun to drive than the EQS even. I mean, the EQS, considering the length of the vehicle, was already fun to drive. And here, this is the normal version of the EQE. It's not even the AMG version, but it feels very sporty, low center of gravity, spontaneous acceleration. It just feels a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean, if that's maybe there, you see also like the animated ambient lighting. Again, you can turn the sound off, you can turn the animated ambient lighting off, and then you have it a little bit more subtle. Yeah, so that's the good thing. You can really control that according to what you like. Not always we can pick every single experience option, but in this case we can, so that's fine. So here when this outside sound experience, it's also possible to, so when I put sound experience off and I go to the lights, have the ambient lighting and edit settings. You see, sometimes it's a little bit complicated, and then I set it here to steady color, ocean blue, that's it. And now we have a more subtle ambient lighting. We have no sound feedback, and there you can have just a more, more quiet, more silent experience, which is not like, hey, EV in your face, y'all. So that might be something, I mean, showing off now in the review, or maybe you have your friends first time in the vehicle, hey, I have this animated ambient lighting, and listen to that sound. But probably after a while, you will rather switch to this mode here, have one color, and also have the sound deactivated. I think this is how it ultimately will go, won't it? So I would really like to know your comments about that. Oh, there's a nice M240i in front of us, new BMW 2 Series generation. We could race that one actually. I mean, we're here less than 5... You're laughing. Less than 5 seconds in the acceleration figure here. Yeah, I mean, this is... Yeah, we're definitely competitive with this one here. Definitely. Here, especially at lower speeds. Although rear axis steering sometimes will feel artificial, here I think it's actually quite nice. It doesn't sound too artificial. Here something is, you know, I think it's maybe like this one here or this one. Yeah, so when we have a lot of G-force here, things are flying around in the vehicle. So overall, I mean, the driving experience is really great. So great noise insulation, great performance, steering is nice, the agile handling. The suspension is a very nice comfort between sportiness and comfort. These 20-inch wheels might also be a good compromise between 19 and 21-inch. 19-inch, of course, will give you better experience. Here in the sports mode, by the way, the suspension is definitely stiffer. So when you go to the comfort mode, it's definitely more forgiving. The interesting thing is, you know, we have stand suspension available or air suspension. And the cool thing is here really, even if you have the standard suspension, it gives you very good comfort. You maybe have seen a recent episode from the EQE where we're driving and thinking, oh, you know, over a bump, and is that air suspension? But no, it was not. Especially in the US, they rather spec it with the standard suspension. And that's actually fine. So if you want to have the best comfort, then you go for the air suspension. But if you want to save a little bit more money, then you can easily stay with the standard suspension. And I think that's also a good thing if you like a new Mercedes EV but don't want to spend the money on the EQS. You can get a low-spec EQE, no problem. Stick with the base suspension, get the base screen, so not all the fancy options, and you still have a great vehicle, which is in a way then also easier to handle and easier to control because you do not need all of the options actually. And yeah, so I always tend to say, hey, I mean, don't tick all the boxes because at some point it will also be overkill. So Michel also has this passenger screen here, in this case then with the hyperscreen combo. We have some interesting statistics there. Michel can check out while driving, for example. Yeah, like energy flow as well, also recuperation. There you can see now that the energy is being gained back to the battery. Yeah, I mean, as a driver, it's probably really distracting. That's also where they have that function where you have the YouTube watching, that when I look over, I'm being eye-tracked and then the YouTube is being deactivated. I did some acceleration tests now, and in the later stages here, I will also reset the consumption meter, do, you know, more normal route for you, that you can also tell you more about our, you know, realistic test consumption here for today. Because when you really floor it out, of course, and when you do like max speed on the highway, usually it's like that you have double the energy consumption you would have in a normal run, so to speak. And what else is interesting? We have here, for example, race vehicle level. So when we're, for example, you know, very slow and there's like a basement ramp or something, or there's like a big hump or maybe some soft off-road conditions, when you have that air suspension, you can also raise the vehicle level. That is also a nice thing to do. And also in, you know, when you're driving really fast, the car lowers a little bit, or when you're in sports mode. But I really have to say, last time I was passenger in this vehicle here in the US, and we were also having some bad roads. This time I'm driving myself with the air suspension, last time without, and I mean, it's extremely good, this suspension. But the base suspension was so good already that I didn't miss the air suspension. And that's definitely a key factor you can take away from that. I told you earlier in the interior part, I love the seating surfaces and the material at the inside of the doors, and here the material on the seats. These are great, and you should always try to get the animal-free version in here for that vehicle. The only thing is, that brings me back to like being tall in this vehicle. It is indeed not the best seating position, same was in the EQS as well, 4 tall people. So it didn't seem like Mercedes paid too much attention for tall drivers. Recent new Mercedes models, is not only counting for this one, to me lack in seat ergonomic comfort, especially for taller drivers. So this is not like material related, it's more like the seat ergonomics form. I'm not exactly sure, maybe the seats are just too narrow, too slim or something, I don't know. But I feel at this moment that the ergonomics, especially in the Audis and in the Volvos, are definitely better from the seating forms. So to me, seat form in Audi and Volvo at the moment is most comfortable. Oh yeah, and the Lexus sport seats we, for example, recently had in the Lexus ES, the F Sport seats, they were also really great in comfort. But here, we have to say, also when the Mercedes engineers are watching, I would try to work more on the ergonomics of the seat. Maybe this was here a little bit thing of, hey, let's take a look at how it dissolves into the rest of the design of the vehicle. But I would rather say, hey, make the comfort focus first and then check out the design. Here it seems as if it would be the other way around, But over here, once again, at lower speeds, I really feel that the rear axle is coming around. And yeah, I'm once again amazed by how much fun this vehicle is to drive. And from a driver's perspective, if you think about EQE versus EQS, definitely the EQE it is. Really even more fun. The EQS just feels more like a ship you steer around. And I mean, you also have sufficient legroom there in the rear. The advantage to me from the EQS is that you have this fast back hatch opening, and here you more have the sedan trunk. But then again, even in the base version, you save around 30,000 euros or dollars already from the difference. And if you spec these vehicles, the difference will be even larger. Then you'll maybe end up like 50k or something difference. So the EQE will be the better deal. It will not have big range losses in comparison to the EQS, although the EQS also gets a little bit bigger battery in the higher versions. But the technology, platform, and efficiency, this is all more or less the same. EQS may be a little bit more efficient because in terms of aerodynamics, the longer the car is, the better it is. That's also something which seems not very logical at first, but in the wind tunnel it becomes apparent then. But still, efficiency will be more or less the same. That's also why the range difference won't be mattering that much. I think the main difference than EQE, EQS will be that price difference. And then you can say, hey, you can actually easily also go for the EQS. So now we're approaching some winding corners, and it's starting to snow up here, actually, because we're going higher and higher and higher. It's getting colder and colder. And that's the thing. It does not have a heat pump, neither the EQE nor the EQS. I am suspecting that this will be kind of remastered in a facelift in a couple of years or something. I think so, because our tests have shown that the range losses for the EQS already have been significant in winter times. It's also the same with other EVs, but here, since you have that missing heat pump, it's definitely a thing. So now we have 2 more things to come, winding corners and then the final consumption for today. Here we go, let's put to the sport mode once again, and now we're getting to a nice 90 degree. Here I don't have to turn the steering wheel that much. And now, acceleration up the hill. Now it's also the snow here, even colder outside. Really nice. And this is very interesting. So if you compare the combustion engine models here with our EV Mercedes, the steering is way more direct and progressive. That's interesting. So to me, with the known Mercedes models, you always have to steer more. So just from that angle. And here I don't have to do that. So I really love that new steering approach. It's not that it would be too drastic or too direct. I think really very finely tuned. So also nice to have it here in these mountain roads. Now the surface getting a little bit wet. So I won't deactivate the dynamic helpers and so on. So there's always a safety thing. But here with the all-wheel drive, we also having something, that we have good traction, of course, when we put it right there. Wow, it was also really beautiful always to go up here. We were actually quite often for some reviews. You also see some static shots here from outside where we are just passing by now. Here now the road is dry, dried from the sun. And it's such a smooth experience with that vehicle. And when we're going downhill once again, then actually you can play out all these advantages from the electric vehicles, because then you can gain back the energy, whereas with the ICEs you would not be able to do that. And now going downhill, let's talk about recuperation and also the creeping mode. So the difference is that the creeping mode is being... What the hell? Is that... They're having a smoker or something.
We didn't start the fire.
So about the creep mode, that setting is being saved. So the creeping mode on and off, that depends on when you're stationary, and then actually put it in D mode and lift the brake. Does it roll forward a little bit or not? And also when it's recuperating, does it come to standstill or not? If the creep mode is on, it's going forward a little bit when you lift the brake, and it will also continue creeping until you hit the brake. If the creep mode is deactivated, then actually it just stands still. It doesn't drive forward, only when you apply the accelerator pedal. And it also will have the stopping, when you have the regenerative braking. That setting is being saved even if you turn off and on the car. Recuperation modes are always being resetted when the ignition is fired, if you can say so. So the thing is that they have to do that because they need to do the homologation, so the official registration of the consumption and so on, in one recuperation mode. And they have to decide for one. They decide for the normal recuperation, which is lift your foot off the throttle and you have some recuperation, just a little bit actually, because they want to get their existing ICE Mercedes customers that they don't have a big transition. You can change them here at shifting pedals. Left, strong recuperation. Then you more or less have a one pedal driving feeling and you have here strong deceleration. Right side, you can go to no recuperation at all. Then it's just rolling. Or one more time, then you are in the intelligent recuperation. To me, this is the best solution because there's always the discussion, what is better, one pedal driving or rolling? Rolling can be more comfortable, not so much G-force applied, especially on passengers. The strong recuperative braking, the one pedal driving feeling can be better as for safety, that you lift your foot off the throttle and you have a deceleration already before you hit the brake maybe. And also you just drive basically with one pedal, which can also be some, having some cool EV effect or something. But I think the intelligent recuperation might be the sweet spot in between. With BMW, we also have good experience with that, for example, because in that case, for example, there is no vehicle in front of you and then the car is just rolling or maybe having some, like here, slight recuperation. But that's also different. Here in the intelligent recuperation in Mercedes, you have some regenerative braking. With BMW, usually it's pure rolling. But when there is a car in front of you and you are in the intelligent recuperation mode, then there is stronger recuperation. And again, this can be a good compromise that you have the best of both worlds. But here, always reset it. I think then the best solution would have been if the intelligent recuperation mode would be the standard mode that always appears at startup, and then you can maybe switch to the other one. Yeah, but either way, even if you hit the brake yourself, there's always first the regenerative braking, and then when you need more braking power, then the brakes are being applied. And here, for example, in this case, it's actually quite good that there's some recuperation because I'm holding the speed actually exactly. So this might be exactly the angle of the road going downhill where it does fit to have the slight recuperation automatically. We're really exactly holding the speed of 80 kilometers an hour. Wow, that's That's astonishing. And now we're dropping down a little bit, but yeah, that's the thing. So very comfortable feature then, of course, to have a stronger regenerative braking, especially when you're going down it, so you don't have to use the brakes at all. But it's really a question and also what kind of driving way or feeling you prefer. At least you can adjust it, but again, the reset thing is also something that has a regulatory issue actually. But now the big question is, what is a realistic consumption, however, today also at winter temperatures? And our final consumption, including accelerations. So you can see here is around 23 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers. That is some 37 kilowatt hours on 100 miles. And that means indeed 400 kilometers or 250 miles at winter temperatures, a little bit better than freezing temperatures actually, and also including some acceleration, so it can also be a little bit better, and it will be better especially than in summertime, and then you can also score some 550 kilometers or 350 miles in ideal conditions. And now tell me, what do you think about the all-new Mercedes EQE?
So what are our findings for today? The Nio ET5 surprised with very good hardware indeed, and drives very well. It's also efficient enough, let's take it that way, but the front driving position is just not suitable for tall drivers because this battery swap technology just requires more space underneath the seat. Also, the no-me interaction and the beeping sounds can be quite annoying at times. However, it's a very good and solid car, no doubt about that. The BMW i4 is connected with the typical BMW driving experience, is a lot of fun indeed. It is not a dedicated EV platform, therefore it also doesn't offer that much space. It's really like driving a BMW 3 Series, just that it's electric. But it also has some very good driving fun, as I said, and also perforated center tech seats. Does a lot of things also very nicely. The Mercedes EQE also has some good EV facts besides the missing heat pump. It will be coming up for future models, so when you buy a Mercedes EQE, be sure that it's already a model that does feature a new heat pump, so you don't have range losses in winter times. Especially the rear seating comfort is not that good, but it also counts for the i4. The Hyundai Ioniq 6 scores with the 800 volt fast charging technology. Fast charging is actually the best overall. It's also a very good drive, not the most efficient one, but also not inefficient, so something in between I would say. I found it also a little bit more pleasing to drive than the Ioniq 5, this more crossover style. Overall, a very good electric sedan Hyundai has put on there. What I like with the VW ID7 is especially the front seating comfort. It has actually the best front seats from all the tested cars. It also drives very well, and it seems that they finally fixed something of the software. It remains to be seen in later and more extensive tests if the software is really that much better than before. So this is one last question mark. We'll keep you updated with that. The best recent VW, and they're definitely right back on track with it. The Polestar 2 has the integrated Android automotive system, so you have native Google Maps support that also calculates the charging stops and so on. That is a very good thing they have there in the Polestar. Also looks quite stunning, drives very well. Just as for the EV facts, like for range and recharging, it's not on top of the game like the competitors. The Tesla Model 3 is definitely the price performance winner because it comes at a very attractive price in the standard range model, so you can get this one with a smaller battery and sometimes even have a better range than some of the competitors with bigger battery. Efficiency is good, especially for US customers. The Tesla supercharging network is very important, so definitely, still as for price performance, it is the winner. Drawbacks with the Model 3: doesn't offer Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. The front seating comfort is not the best one. Yes, all the interior is animal free. That's also really good. The ID7 also offers that right now, as well as the Nio ET5. So next to the Model 3 as the price performance winner, I would pick the ID7 as the comfort winner actually. And it remains to be seen if the software can match up with all the rest of the quality, and the BMW i4 as the driving fun winner. So these are my 2 cents for today, 2 electric cents, and looking forward to your comments. Which one would you actually take? Tell me in the comments and why, and see you at more comparison episodes.